Regional National Cereals and Produce Board NCPB stores, and not to the smallest devolved until at the country level, though causing the fertilizer to be inaccessible to farmers at the grassroots. State whether there are plans by the government to ensure that the subsidized fertilizer is distributed to the ward level or at the chief's office or any other convenient location close to farmers, and 3, state measures put in place to ensure subsidized fertilizer is available and accessible to farmers early enough before the onset of the planting season. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Maruma.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to request for this statement on the Kaloleni Majengo Settlement Scheme of Voi Sub-County. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Lands, Environment and Natural Resources regarding the status of adjudication of Kaloleni Majengo Settlement Scheme in Voi Sub-County, Taita Taveta County. In the statement, the committee should, 1, update the Senate on the status of the land adjudication process, 2, state the reasons for the abandonment of the adjudication process, 3, state or table a comprehensive list of all the landowners in Kaloleni Majengo Settlement Scheme, and 4, indicate the estimated timeline for the recommencement of title deed issuance to the landowners in Kaloleni Majengo Settlement Scheme. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Mohammed Chute.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I'm requesting for a statement on the release of retention money arising out of contracts for construction works in the northern frontier counties. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Roads, Transportation and Housing regarding the release of retention money arising out of contracts for construction works in the northern frontier counties. In the statement, the committee should, 1, provide details of contractors engaged by the county government of Garissa, Wajir, Mandera, Marsabit, Isiolo, Turkana, Samburu, and West Pokot to undertake construction works and their respective amounts paid by them as retention money from the year 2017 to date. 2, indicate the status of release of retention money by the county government's respective contractors within the same period, providing reasons for any releases that have not been effected. 3, state the total amount currently held by the county government as retention money, explaining the reason for discrepancies, if any, between the amounts paid by and released to the contractors. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, sir, state measures put in place to ensure timely release of retention money to the contractors. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
As I run through the last statement, I will allow 2 interventions on the statement sought by Senator Chute.
Thank you.
Senator Cherange.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to comment something on the statement by Senator Mundigi. Mr. Speaker, sir, and Senator Chute, I want to thank government on the subsidized program of fertilizer. I think what we need to do is now to ensure in future, Mr. Speaker, we devolve to the certain level of either ward level or sub-county level, to ease access to farmers. Number two, Mr. Speaker, when I met farmers at the Bonjoka area, Mr. Speaker, in Kabwareng ward, they requested that the issue of subsidized fertilizer should come up a bit early, especially in November, December. And number two, Mr. Speaker, we should not only retain subsidized fertilizer only, Mr. Speaker, to only the aspect of maize only. They want it included in coffee, sugarcane, and tea, Mr. Speaker. And I think we had a robust discussion under the leadership of His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua when we were doing tea reforms in Kericho. So, Mr. Speaker, on the aspect of, and I'm happy government has budgeted more than 5 billion for subsidized fertilizer in this coming planting season in the budget, financial budget of 2023-2024. And we hope the small matter in court of the finance bill shall be resolved so that we can get enough and sufficient resources, Mr. Speaker. Finally, Mr. Speaker, on the aspect, and I think on the statement by Senator Okinyuri, even us, I've seen her talking about the role of Abakusi community in the fight against fight for Kenya's independence, Mr. Speaker. Even us, we have what we call Koitalel, Samoe, and the Nandi warriors and the Kalenjin warriors who are yet to be compensated at now. So I'll be very keen, Mr. Speaker, to relook at it, Mr. Speaker. Finally, on the issue of retention of money, the law is very clear, Mr. Speaker, that retention money acts as to protect the government or county governments from liability. Mr. Speaker, if there is anybody who has taken away retention money from these northern frontier counties, Mr. Speaker, they must fail full force of the law. This is illegal. This is against financial law, against Public Finance Management Act, Mr. Speaker, because the retention money are supposed to act as an insurance of the projects that you are undertaking in county governments and national governments, Mr. Speaker. We'll be looking forward, not only the northern frontier counties, even my county, Mr. Speaker, when you check retention funds, especially for flagship projects, Mr. Speaker, they no longer exist. So actually, Mr. Speaker, they are violating the law, and I think what is happening in northern frontier counties, Mr. Speaker, we have had a discussion, especially in Public Accounts Committee, on retention money that affects, Mr. Speaker. So I would be keen that, Mr. Speaker, let us not only restrict, Mr. Speaker, to north frontier counties. I would want also other counties to be included, and I request that, Mr. Speaker, this should not go to Committee of Roads. It should come to where I'm the Vice Chair, Mr. Speaker, so that we can handle, Mr. Speaker, because I know, Mr. Speaker, because I know how these people behave. I'm the only, Mr. Speaker, who has an expertise of clamping them down and ensure that we look at this issue. And I can assure you, Mr. Speaker, as my committee, we will not let the House down. We will not let the leadership down. We will not let Kenyans down. We will handle them where necessary to ensure their account, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Karunga, your point of order, I thought it's been overtaken. The senator has already taken his seat.
Mr. Speaker.
Proceed to contribute, to make your intervention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I would want to say that Senator Chute, in his own right, he did what is supposed to be done by bringing that statement on the floor of this House. He's actually a member of the Roads and Transportation Committee, and he believes that this committee will execute the mandate by giving the information back once we get the response, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is not only in the northern side that the retention money has accumulated so much that people are not getting the money they're supposed to get once they do jobs or they do contracts with the county, Mr. Speaker. I think once we look at the statement, we are going to look even to other counties, look to other contracts, Mr. Speaker, to see how much the government, that is the national government, and even the county government, that all those who are given contracts in various contracts, Mr. Speaker, so that they can get their monies back, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you realize that, and I'm giving this in comparison with the county governments, Mr. Speaker, people have really complained about the pending bills, Mr. Speaker. And I've always been telling those who ask, the reason why we have pending bills is because counties, Mr. Speaker, when they are doing their budgets, they overshoot their revenue, their own source revenue projections, Mr. Speaker. And when they don't collect that own source revenue, yet they budgeted for it, and they already give contracts for those through that budget, Mr. Speaker, that's why they are pending bills. And that's why sometimes they retain this 10%, the retention fee. That's why, Mr. Speaker, they're unable to pay because probably they use that amount on other projects, Mr. Speaker. So we are going to look into this issue with binoculars and every lens, Mr. Speaker, so that we make sure those that are owed are given their dues. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Kinyua.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Nashukuru Bwana Speaker kwa kunipa fursa hii kuchangia kwa taarifa iliyoletwa na Senator Mundigi. Bwana Speaker, ni jambo la kuvunja moyo sana kwa sababu Bwana Speaker, ukiona ya kwamba mbolea ambayo inapeanwa na serikali, mbolea yenyewe badala ya kupelekwa mashinani kabisa, Bwana Speaker, inapelekwa katika miji mikuu, Bwana Speaker, ambapo ni mbali sana na wakulima, Bwana Speaker. Kwa hivyo naunga mkono, Bwana Speaker, mbolea yenyewe ikienda ipelekwe mashinani, mahali ambapo wakulima wenyewe wanahusika kwa hii mambo ya ukulima, Bwana Speaker. Ukitembea kama Laikipia, Bwana Speaker, unapata inapelekwa na nyuki, inapelekwa pale Nyahururu, Bwana Speaker, na ilhali wakulima, Bwana Speaker, ambao wanahitaji ile mbolea wako mashinani, ipelekwe Rumuruti, ipelekwe Olmora, Bwana Speaker, ipelekwe Sipili, ipelekwe Matanya, Bwana Speaker, ipelekwe Yomireria, mahali ambapo wakulima wako ambao wanahitaji ile mbolea, Bwana Speaker. Kwa hivyo, Bwana Speaker, nashukuru na naunga mkono hoja ama taarifa iliyoletwa na Mheshimiwa Mundigi. Asante, Bwana Speaker.
Senator Aaron. Majority Leader, your name is beaming on my dashboard, certainly signifying that you want to speak.
Yes.
Proceed.
Mr. Speaker, apologies. I didn't know you had given me the floor. Mr. Speaker, I wanted to react to the statement by Senator, two statements actually, Senator Mundigi and then also Senator Said Chute. Let me start with Senator Mundigi's statement. Mr. Speaker, I like the angle that Senator Mundigi has pursued, where we are asking of the Ministry of Agriculture to furnish this House, Mr. Speaker, with details on the plans that they have to ensure that there is flawless distribution, Mr. Speaker, of the fertilizer program. Mr. Speaker, this is one of the signature success stories of this administration, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, because of the many theories that are being peddled by prophets of doom about what this administration has achieved in the last 8 months, we have missed an important celebration. When this administration came to office, Mr. Speaker, there was a bill of 8 billion Kenya shillings at the Ministry of Agriculture to register farmers and map them out for purposes of distribution of fertilizer, Mr. Speaker. But this being a prudent administration, Mr. Speaker, we sat down and using the administrative officers, DCCs, chiefs, sub-chiefs, who are previously being used by the previous administration, Mr. Speaker, to conduct political activities and performing dismally while at it, Mr. Speaker, we use them well because your chief, Mr. Speaker, knows what size of land you have and what you're cultivating or tilling on that particular land, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, when it comes to registration of farmers, they are the most best place, Mr. Speaker, to draw out a map of each and every farmer in this country, Mr. Speaker. Out of that program, more than 6 million farmers, Mr. Speaker, have benefited out of this program. Spent perhaps less than 50 million Kenya shillings to carry out this program, Mr. Speaker, something which the previous administration had budgeted over 8 billion Kenya shillings to undertake, Mr. Speaker. But what Senator Mundigi is asking of the Ministry of Agriculture, Mr. Speaker, is a valid concern. That after the registration of the 6 million farmers, Mr. Speaker, and an increase of more than 200,000 hectares of land under cultivation on this program, Mr. Speaker, that it is now time to upscale this conversation and ensure that farmers don't have to travel for long distances. That my farmers, for example, in Kipkelion West Sub-County, don't have to take the matatu all the way to the Kedoa NCPB stores, Mr. Speaker, to pick 1 or 2 bags of fertilizer, Mr. Speaker. That government must find ways of ensuring the last mile exercise of this program, Mr. Speaker, is well drawn out, either by use of the list structure of the devolved unit, that is the wards, ensuring that in collaboration with our county governments, you ensure you find a safe storage for the fertilizers that are due for farmers in a particular ward, or if that becomes even difficult, because, Mr. Speaker, that would be an enormous task. If I think of my own ward of Kabianga, where I come from in Kericho County, Mr. Speaker, everybody is a farmer, and everybody expects fertilizer. So if you say that you place it at any of the centers within that particular ward, Mr. Speaker, it will mean that you have hundreds of thousands of bags, and therefore subject to risk of theft and the following. Perhaps by use of agrovets, Mr. Speaker, because in every town or small center, Mr. Speaker, in this country, at least in places where they practice farming, Mr. Speaker, there is an agrovet. And I'm sure, Mr. Speaker, because this is a promise that we made and was in our manifesto, Mr. Speaker, that it is possible to register them and have them carry out the last mile exercise, Mr. Speaker, so that farmers can just simply walk to their center. They will not even need to hire boda or anything, Mr. Speaker. On their bags, on their bags, Mr. Speaker, they would be able to find this fertilizer, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, I hope that our colleague, Senator Mithika Linturi, is listening to the conversation in the Senate this afternoon, hearing that the concern that senators have on behalf of the farmers that they represent, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, that is how you feed your people. I say that, Mr. Speaker, because I saw our colleagues from the minority side yesterday saying that if we want them to stop causing the wanton destruction of property that they are carrying out in the country, that we give people food, Mr. Speaker. How else do you give people food? Food doesn't fall from the sky. It is cultivated in people's farms. That's why we are giving out this program. That's why we are seated here. That's why Senator Mundigi is asking of the Ministry of Agriculture that they execute this program with military precision and ensure that every farmer receives the due bag of fertilizer to them, so that we can have a prosperous and a country that is well fed, so that people can work and not have to carry sufurias on their head, Mr. Speaker. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, is the statement by Senator Said Chute. That's an interesting one, Mr. Speaker, because I have seen the list of demands that he has placed, Mr. Speaker. It will be interesting to know, perhaps, where is it that you collate all this information, because it relates to information on about 7 or 6 counties, Mr. Speaker, on the various contractors that they hired or they procured for goods and services, Mr. Speaker. Perhaps maybe Office of the Controller of Budget, but then the Controller of Budget only approves what counties have sent. I don't think we have a centralized place, but this will be interesting. I don't want to preempt the work that our colleagues in the Finance and Budget Committee will do, Mr. Speaker, but it will be interesting to know where you'd source, or whether each county will individually file their own for comparison purposes. But it's important, Mr. Speaker, we get to know, because, Mr. Speaker, the conversation shouldn't be just about the northern frontier. Mr. Speaker, there are very few contractors who, when we began in 2013, the devolution cycle, did business with county governments, that are still in active business simply by relying on county governments alone, Mr. Speaker. Many have either left that trade or switched on to do other things, Mr. Speaker, because one of the, perhaps, in fact, I saw some people say, working or doing business with county governments should be included in the one of their 1,000 ways to die, Mr. Speaker, in this country, because you can wait for your payment for many, many years. Many Kenyans have been auctioned, Mr. Speaker, because of just doing or plying their trade with county governments, especially those that do business in the last financial year before elections, Mr. Speaker. Lucky are you if the next administration moves on to pay you. And therefore, we must have safeguards, Mr. Speaker. I know Senator Mariam Sheikh had proposed to us the prompt payment bill, and many of us, we held different views. I saw the response from the Committee on Finance about the challenges that you'll have with implementation. But we must still be able to address this particular issue of payment to contractors across administrations, Mr. Speaker. The fact that I did work in Kilifi County, Mr. Speaker, under the governorship of Amason Jeffa Kingi does not mean, Mr. Speaker, that when the new governor comes into office, that I'm denied an opportunity to be paid, Mr. Speaker. This is a problem that is prominent in all our 47 devolved units, Mr. Speaker, and many contractors continue to suffer. So I hope when this committee consider this request by Senator Chute, Mr. Speaker, they will also find time to listen to the challenges with all these other contractors, so that as a House, perhaps we can reach a resolution and have a firm solution to this particular issue, Mr. Speaker, in the greater interest of the people who do business with our county governments. Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Abbas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to support the statement for Honorable Senator Chute of Marsabit. Honorable Speaker, as you are aware, the retention money for all construction works is actually 10% of the initial capital price. However, this money is supposed to be retained for only 1 year at most. The purpose of this money is actually in any incidents of in case the work is not well done, if the work is done, or the work is done incompletely. However, this money is never paid to any of the contractors. It says many years in the books, but it's never given back to most of the contractors are now forfeiting it. At times, contractors they do their job, they do it to complete it. They might not even get a better profit margin, and they depend on this retention money. But however, this money is not actually paid back to them, and most of the money is forfeited, and at times it stays for some years in the books, and it becomes automatically forfeited, and therefore I think I want to support Honorable Swite that this money must be paid in time, at least for the 1 year. They're going to be retained. If the work is well done and the work is completed, then it must be paid. With those few remarks, I beg to support.
Before we call the next order, I've got the following communication to make. In the Speaker's Gallery this afternoon, we have 56 students accompanied by 2 teachers from South Taito Girls High School, Nyeri County, who are in the Senate on an education tour. In our usual tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them, and on behalf of the Senate, and on my own behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. I'm not seeing the Senator for Nyeri County. I will therefore ask Senator Karen Nyamu to say welcoming remarks under 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to say words of welcome to the visiting students. We welcome you this afternoon to our session in the Senate to observe how we carry out our business here. We are bound by rules of the House. I'm sure you have had some sessions with your teachers and the guides here in the Senate. We welcome you to learn as much as possible, to get inspired as much as possible, and to make sure that as the proceedings continue, you are getting the gist of how we operate here, so that you can have as much learning experience as possible. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I will allow Senator Methu to also say brief remarks, welcoming remarks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'm particularly very excited that you give me an opportunity to welcome the beautiful girls from South Taito Girls School in Nyeri. Even though it's not my home county, on behalf of their Senator Wahoma Matinga, I welcome them to the Senate. I'm particularly excited, Mr. Speaker, that amongst the students who are here is my own sister, Hannah Njoki, a good girl who was left by her mother when she was a primary school kid, and she has beaten all odds, and I'm very, very, very proud as her guardian that She's now a student, and she's doing very well. She has made me very proud, and indeed our family proud. And she is a proof that you can become and go all the way up. As I wish them well and in their visit to the Senate. When I last visited their school, Mr. Speaker, they asked that they would want to come to the Senate so that they see where the brother of one of their colleagues work and ply his trade. And I'm very happy that we've made this happen, and we have made it possible. I just want to tell them the words that I've told them, that if they believe in themselves and they begin working very hard, they will become whatever they would want to become. Through Anne and myself, they're able to mirror themselves, and they're able to see that they can become and go all the way up. I wish you well. Most of them, Mr. Speaker, are Form 4 students, including my own sister, who is a candidate. So from the floor of the Senate, I give you my best wishes. Please go and conquer the world, go and conquer the exam, go and become great leaders. Among us, the senators who are in these chambers are good senators who have gone all the way up. I'm particularly very excited that Senator Professor Margaret Kamal is here, who became a professor on the year that I was born, Mr. Speaker. And she has been afloat through and through, having been a member of parliament, having been a minister of higher education on the year that I joined the university. And she's an example that the girls from South Teto girls can take after. I wish them well, including some other very young colleagues who are here, Senator Maletian, other young senators who are here. You have all the examples. Senator Karen Nyamu, who just spoke to you, you have all the examples to become whatever you want to become. I wish you well as you go back to Nyeri.
Next order, clerk.
Order number 8, the Community Health Services Bill, Senate Bills number 24 of 2023, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to provide a framework for the delivery of community health services, to promote access to primary health care services at the community level and reduce health disparities between counties, to provide for the training and capacity building of community health workforce and for connected purposes.
Next order.
Order number 12, the Persons with Disabilities Bill, Senate Bills number 7 of 2023, second reading, resumption of debate.
Thank you, Speaker. Senator Asige, you have a balance of 59 minutes.
Thank you, Speaker. I beg to move that the Persons with Disabilities Bill 2023, Senate Bill 7 of 2023, be read a second time. Speaker, history tells us the story of a poor, young, blind Kenyan man from Makueni named John Kimuyu, who in 1959, at 26 years old, defied age, race, and disability to court and soon after marry Ruth Holloway, a very well-off 35-year-old white missionary woman from Nottingham, England, who was his teacher at the School for the Disabled at the time that he attended. Needless to say, Speaker, the union in 1959 was unfathomable. Amid segregation and high tensions around British colonialism, this was the backdrop to which their story progressed, attracting much opposition from the British community. Because of his race, of course, but also because of the disdain for Mr. Kimuyu's disability. In response, this also saw Kenyans with disabilities take to the streets in protest of this discrimination. Although black men, including Mzee Jomo Kenyatta and Agwin Skodek, had both freely married white women themselves, protesters demanded that Mzee Kenyatta protect the inherent right of PWDs and their right to marry freely, and that
And that, Speaker, is where the arduous journey of disability inclusion began. Speaker, it is said that love is blind, and perhaps it is, but I would go further to say that disability is blind. Blind because disability does not discriminate. People do. Blind because disability does not discriminate. Systems do. Blind because it has been repeatedly ignored, rendering us invisible. Blind because in 1959, the young, determined, blind man did his part to expose a problem, giving me, today, a young, determined, blind woman, the opportunity to do my part and propose solutions. The principal object of this PWD bill is to repeal the Persons with Disabilities Act of 2003 and have in place a law that is consistent with our Constitution. The bill places emphasis on human rights approach towards the realization of rights for persons with disabilities. The bill also sets out the obligations of both the national and county governments in line with the Constitution of 2010 to ensure that the county obligations are delineated towards the fourth schedule of the Constitution. The bill also incorporates the provisions of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, as well as the Protocol to African Charter on Human Rights. Speaker, currently there is no legal framework that sets out the obligations of the county governments with regard to persons with disabilities, that is. This bill, therefore, seeks to impose obligations on each level of government to address the needs of PWDs, in line, of course, with Article 54 of our Constitution. Under this bill, the national government is mandated to, among other functions, develop policies on the protection of persons with disabilities, promote integration of persons with disabilities in education institutions, healthcare, justice systems, also promote the inclusion of PWDs in employment and the public service, and implement preferential procurement measures for PWDs managed by, for entities managed by PWDs. Speaker, the implementation of the above is vital, as it is crucial to avail resources to make it easy for inclusion and integration of PWDs in all services. Let's take the healthcare system, for example. There are cases where a deaf person has gone to a hospital and receives a prescription that says 2 times 3. To you and I, that seems like a very straightforward instruction. Take 2 tablets 3 times a day. But that would be a wrong assumption in this case. That's what we call ableism, Speaker. Without a trained sign language interpreter present to communicate the prescription, this deaf patient calculated simple maths, 2 times 3, and thought that they should take 6 tablets at once. These mistakes can have serious consequences that we cannot ignore. This is just one example of many layered challenges that persons with diverse disabilities face across different sectors on a daily basis. On the other hand, Speaker, county governments are mandated to, among other functions, implement the national policy and strategy on persons with disabilities, which I understand is being drafted by the National Council of Persons with Disabilities as we speak. Allocate adequate resources to programs targeting PWDs, and develop mechanisms for identification and registration of persons with disabilities residing in each county. Speaker, the 2019 census estimated the population of PWDs at around 900,000. This was a sharp reduction in the number of PWDs compared to 10 years prior in 2009 census, recording over 1.3 million PWDs approximately. That left a discrepancy of around 400,000 PWDs. You can see how, Madam Speaker, since census discrepancy can suppress PWD inclusion. An equitable budget allocation as well towards inclusive development. It should be noted that these numbers are not actually broken down into counties. It's a huge gap that needs legislative intervention because, as I like to say, if you don't count it, it doesn't count. However, this bill will bridge this gap. Madam Speaker, I would like to highlight the utmost significance of interagency relations, recognizing that the National Council for Persons with Disabilities, NCPWD, cannot operate effectively in isolation. The officials of NCPWD have brought to this House the difficulties they encounter in fulfilling their responsibilities due to inadequate staffing. In order to address this concern, it's essential for the county governments and admin officers to play a role in identifying PWDs and facilitating their registration across the counties. By working in collaboration, we can alleviate this burden and ensure that support is given to PWDs. The bill seeks to review the membership of National Council for Persons with Disabilities to ensure that the council is more efficient and representative. Madam Speaker, the bill also requires county governments to only approve plans for the construction of roads and buildings that take into account accessibility and universal design provisions. Now, Madam Speaker, the ever-prevalent notion that accessibility is just providing a ramp or a lift is very small-minded. Speaker, without education on universal design, we run the risk of forever believing that being accommodative to PWDs means only building ramps and lifts because, hey, that's all we need to be compliant with. That is wrong. Allow me to take us all into a quick universal design class, Madam Speaker. The built environment should be meticulously designed, constructed, and maintained to facilitate orientation and ensure safety. In my world of inclusive transport and mobility, Speaker, orientation specifically means the ability to navigate, identify potential hazards, and determine when one has reached the destination. For example, when designing pathways, it's crucial to ensure that an adequate width, free from obstacles with a continuous, firm, durable, slip-resistant surface is provided for. Appropriate measures such as universally designed drop curbs, tactile paving, and handrails should also be incorporated to avoid accidents and injuries. To allow for the passage of 2 wheelchair users, a minimum unobstructed width of 1.8 meters is recommended, so that in a fire breakout, sufficient space is provided to prevent casualties. In the case of ramps, they should have a surface width of at least 1.2 meters. Further, both the foot and the head of the sloped path, stepped path, or ramp should have an end landing. It's also important to include guardrails alongside ramps to ensure safety of wheelchair users and pedestrians who require extra support, preventing injuries that may occur during falling. These intricacies are often overlooked by our architects, urban designers, construction companies, and agencies, but are vital in creating truly accessible environments for all to use. Speaker, I experienced a concerning issue in the City Hall building, an institution entrusted with safety of all of us in Kenya, including PWDs. For a period of time, the building had no functioning lifts, resulting in restricted access for PWDs and other individuals with limited mobility, like the elderly, attempting to reach specific offices on various floors. If City Hall, an entity whose needs to lead by example, fails to uphold these requirements, how can we expect that other institutions to comply? Speaker, persons with disabilities want and need to access City Hall, courthouses, police stations, Huduma centers, education institutions, sporting venues, houses of worship, malls and supermarkets, cinemas and museums, cafes and restaurants, and even bars and nightclubs. It may be hard to believe, Speaker, but we don't only visit hospitals and therapy facilities as PWDs. We have a life and we want to live it as fully as we can. In order to align the functions of the Council with the Constitution of Kenya, this bill proposes to enhance the powers and functions of the National Council for Persons with Disabilities by including functions that require the Council to liaise and consult with county governments and other relevant agencies. The bill seeks to ensure that county governments are consulted by the ministry responsible for sports as well, when developing designs to make sports facilities accessible to persons with disabilities. We call these adaptive sports facilities, Speaker. Further, in keeping with the current technological developments of the world, the National Council is required to undertake research and recommendations of new tech, including assistive devices, mobility aids, and rehabilitation therapies. Inaccessibility in the built environment affects every part of our experience. The correlation may not be obvious, Speaker, but allow me to explain. As PWDs, inaccessible primary schools mean that we often receive far less adequate early childhood interaction. Inaccessible high schools means that we miss out on the integral adolescent education that we need. And inaccessible university campuses mean that we miss out on the qualifications that we need to be employable. If we manage to withstand all of these barriers, still we battle as adults with inaccessible workplaces, public transport systems and stations, as well as inaccessible essential services, including health and wellness, financial, recreational, cultural, and governmental services. This bill also proposes to deal with the realization of rights and incentives for persons with disabilities. The bill is specific on the following rights, among others: the right to equality and non-discrimination, the right to legal capacity, the right to marry and form a family, the right to human dignity, the right to education, the right to work, and the right to health. The bill provides for incentives and reliefs, including tax exemptions, incentives for local manufacturers of assistive devices, access to credit, exemption to taxable income if you're an employer person with disability, and exemption from postal charges. The bill makes provisions against harmful practices, torture, and cruel treatment against PWDs, providing for life imprisonment on conviction. The bill also amends the Films and Stage Plays Act to compel makers of film to make such films accessible to people with disabilities, which I personally very much enjoy as a provision. Madam Speaker, we have an obligation to ensure that persons with disabilities are at long last recognized, respected, and included in our society. Building the environment through inclusive development is far more than just development, Speaker. I see it as a common thread that either brings PWDs closer to or further away from the dignity, independence, safety, confidence, equity, and inclusion that we work twice as hard to enjoy every day. To do so, we must pass this bill. It is in this context that this bill proposes to impose obligations on each level of government to address socioeconomic needs of PWDs in all areas. Speaker, to conclude, by repealing the PWD Act of 2003 and introducing these comprehensive provisions, we can break free from the shackles of neglect and forge a path of progress. This bill demands our collective action and unwavering determination to transform the status quo. It calls for the national and county governments to assume their responsibilities, ensuring that PWDs are treated with dignity and respect and provided with equal access to education, employment, transportation, and other essential services that all other Kenyans enjoy. Let's challenge ourselves to envision a society where disability is not ignored, but a realm of untapped potential for far-reaching diversity, equity, and inclusion in Kenya. Madam Speaker, at this point, I beg to move and call upon, I'm not sure if my seconder is here behind me because I can't see. But my seconder
Senator,
was
who's your seconder?
Nairobi Senator.
He's not there.
He stepped out. Thank you. I then call upon Senator Cherargei, if he would be so kind to second. I thank you.
Senator Cherargei. Thank you, Senator Asige.
Thanks, Senator Crystal Asike, for this wonderful bill. I think it goes a long way to celebrate her commitment. I think Kenyans generally, and especially people who are living differently ably, or PWDs, should be proud, Madam Speaker, of what Senator Crystal Asike is doing to push for their welfare. I think she has pushed for a number of bills, Madam Speaker, which is quite a number. And I request also to diversify, because most of our bills, Madam Speaker, has been biased, let me use that word, towards PWDs. But I think it is rightfully there, because in any case, this section of the population also need the necessary attention that Senator Crystal Asike is doing. And I'm happy the commitment she has in the role of Article 96 as a senator is bearing fruits. The commitment she has is the commitment that she normally has, or she has used to on a creative wall. And I have assured you, Madam Speaker, once in a while when you listen to our songs, they are well thought out and in us a lot, especially for some of us who did Fasihi or literature. It sends very good messages across. So, Madam Speaker, the basis of the PWD, the Persons with Disabilities Bill 2023. Madam Speaker, according to 2019 Population and Housing Census, the population of PWDs in Kenya is 2% of the population. That is 0.9 million people live with PWDs in Kenya. Madam Speaker, to be a PWD, sometimes many people imagine that you must be born with it. Sometimes because of the accidents, Madam Speaker. You saw what happened in Londiani Junction, where more than 50 lives were lost, Madam Speaker. And we still empathize and sympathize with those families, Madam Speaker. A number of many people are still recuperating in the hospitals. And some of them might become permanently disabled. And these were able-bodied Kenyans, Madam Speaker. So PWDs does not mean that sometimes you are born with it, or because of other things in life, like accidents, which is rampant in this country, Madam Speaker. And I hope the relevant agencies, NTSA, Traffic Department, the Ministry of Transport should seize the matter, because we are losing many Kenyans through road accidents. And secondly, Madam Speaker, we are also losing many Kenyans who either lose their limbs or their hands, Madam Speaker, or even lose the art of seeing, Madam Speaker. And therefore, it becomes a challenge. So when we have a topic about the people living with disability, Madam Speaker, we should not imagine that these are different from us. They are also part of Kenyans. And there are people who are temporarily disabled, Madam Speaker. And where I come from, I'm happy, Senator Crystal, you are taking the lead in this, in the issue of legislation to ensure PWDs are recognized. Like in Nandi, we have a number of schools, like Kenya School, Kapsabet School for the Deaf in Kapsabet Town. We have small homes that are being sponsored by Catholics in Tindred, especially in, Madam Speaker, in Tachazis, which is sponsored by the Catholic. And I want to commend the role of religious organizations in this country. The Catholic has taken a role. A number of religious, even Salvation Army, Madam Speaker, are also playing a critical role. The Quakers, the Anglican, the Adventist. I want to commend the religious organizations for taking keen interest, especially to assist people living with disability. And Nandi has been a beneficiary of, especially of small homes that are supported by, Madam Speaker, by the Catholic Church of Kenya. And I want to really thank the Bishop of Eldoret Diocese, where our jurisdiction, my jurisdiction fall, Bishop Dominic Mengich, Madam Speaker, for ensuring those small homes continue to run. And you know, Madam Speaker, I visited, another one is in Dalat Jobs Public School for the people living with disability. The name Job comes from a young man who was born without arms and limbs. And she attended a normal primary school in Dalat in Masab sub-county. He went ahead to establish a public school specifically for children living with disability. And at the beginning of the year, around March, Madam Speaker, of this year, I visited that school. Madam Speaker, when you see the teachers and the community who support such children, Madam Speaker, they are doing a lot of job. These are heroes. These are people we should be giving head of state commendations. We should be recognizing them. Not people who just carry kiteri and on the line and just vote and then you give them head of state commendation, Madam Speaker. When you go and see, these are children who have different challenges, Madam Speaker, and they take care of them, they change them, they teach them to work, they do physiotherapy, Madam Speaker, and I'm impressed from what Job is doing in Dalat School for PWDs, Madam Speaker. And I will, one of these fine days, I'll request Senator Crystal Lasige to visit those of my two schools. There are only two in the county, and also encourage, even to motivate them, to tell them being different is like all of us. Even if you are PWD, it does not mean you have less opportunity. If you are aggressive and you work hard, you can be who you can be. Madam Speaker, in the upshot of my opening remarks, because I'll be very brief, because I've been given the honor to second. Madam Speaker, when you look under Article 54 of the Constitution, it talks persons with disability. And I think the Disability Act that is credited to then Vice President Moody Awori of 2003, I think it has been overtaken by events, and I agree with her that we need to repeal that law and come up with a 2023 one sponsored by Crystal, the PWDs Act. And it is based on Article 54 of the Constitution, because Constitution 2010 is very clear. Like, for example, Madam Speaker, under Article 54, basically what Senator Crystal has done is the import of Article 54 and now give it a prescriptive nature in the legislation. For example, to be treated with dignity and respect, to be addressed and referred in a manner that is not demeaning. I think that is important, Madam Speaker. No one likes to be demeaned, anyone in this, and they must their dignity, Madam Speaker. When you no longer have a dignity, you are no longer a person, Madam Speaker. And they must be respected, like Part B, to access educational institutions and facilities for PWDs are integrated into society to extent of compatible with the interests of the person. Madam Speaker, and I want to call upon parents, because research has shown that some parents, when they get children with PWDs, they hide them, Madam Speaker. They don't take them to school. They see as a curse, especially in our African sector, Madam Speaker. You don't choose, somebody was saying you don't choose the parents you are born to. And Madam Speaker, you also don't choose the children you get. So I want to ask parents across the country that let us be proud of our children, whether they are children living with disability or the normal children. And it does not make sense you hide that child because he's partially blind or is blind or cannot walk or has the challenges of walking or coordination and is a PWD, a PWD, Madam Speaker. We need to see them, like our friends that are seated on your gallery, the students and pupils that are seated there. We need, if you have a child, let them be integrated as part of the society so that they don't feel less of being human being, Madam Speaker. And I'm happy that, Madam Speaker, in the last session, we had Senator Maura, who was a PWD in terms of albinism. We have now a number of colleagues and the champion of PWD, Senator Crystal Lasige. So we need that reintegration. I think somebody was telling me in terms of the speech of the child, coordination of movement to be part of the engagement. But see, Madam Speaker, to reasonably access all places, public transport and information. Madam Speaker, I still request that, especially counties, whenever they are giving out scholarship, bursary, let them prioritize PWDs, vulnerable children, the orphans, so that they can get the best they can, Madam Speaker. I've told you, most parents, Madam Speaker, normally are not proud, especially some parents, I'm not saying all, are not proud when they have a child who is slow to speak, who has a PWD challenge, Madam Speaker. And access public transport in Kenya, I think it is still a challenge. Senator Crystal will agree with me, accessing a public transport in Nairobi, you must be, in Nairobi, Madam Speaker, you don't need to go for a gym if you are using public transport. Because the way those makangas or the matris, Madam Speaker, wanakudondosha, you don't need to or they drop you, Madam Speaker. You are being dropped at the speed of 180 kilometers per hour. So you don't need even to attend a gym. So we still have a challenge, Madam Speaker, because even I've seen people, and I'm also guilty as charged, in an occasion where, Madam Speaker, even parking, designated parking areas, designated dropping areas for the people living with disability. You'll find somebody who is not a PWD parking on an area that is meant for people living with disability. And that is why public transport, Madam Speaker, is still a challenge. I don't know what the government will do so that even buses, the way they are designed, they drop on and pick off, Madam Speaker. I don't know in this country, Madam, we are always in a hurry. If we are not overlapping, this country, Madam Speaker, we are good at bad manners. Because if the matatus are not overlapping, the private cars are not overlapping, they don't care PWDs. I'm happy a number of matatu touts, Madam Speaker, sometimes I saw a story, I can't recall when, where they used to drop and pick her, a lady who was disabled. And those are heroes we need to celebrate because we need to do civic awareness that our Kenyans, 0.9 million Kenyans who are PWDs, also require these services, Madam Speaker. Article 54D, to use sign language, braille, and other appropriate means of communication. Madam Speaker, I think, and I want to thank Senator Crystal Asika, I think I've seen media houses, even public functions, be it private or public or government functions, I normally see people with sign language. And I think Kenya has come and grown because it was not there before, Madam Speaker. And also to access materials and devices to overcome constraints from persons' disability. The final one, Madam Speaker, is Article 54E. I agree with Senator Crystal that we need to give tax-free and tax exemptions, especially to assistive devices. Madam Speaker, I used to be part of a group called, we were trying to get cochlear implants for the young children, Madam Speaker, and it is very costly. We are being told it costs up to 4 million to get those cochlear implants, especially for the children that have such challenges, Madam Speaker. I agree with that all assistive devices should be zero-rated, should be given tax exemption, Madam Speaker. If we are giving tax exemptions to corporations to start business, I see, which is good, I see corporations come into the country and say, give us tax reliefs, give us tax exemptions so that we can set up business in this country. Let us be humane. Let us give also tax exemptions and reliefs to assistive devices, Madam Speaker, because they are very costly, especially for the people living with it. And this is a small part of our population. So only the greatest thing that the government can do is to exempt, Madam Speaker, especially on assistive devices, be it listening, walking, because even I remember when I had a political accident in the last session, Madam Speaker, buying that is it called Mkongojo or assisting walking crane, very expensive. I doubt even not, and that is why when you go to the village, Madam Speaker, you get somebody working with the miti, this one, Adonna Ribagora, because, Madam Speaker, it is expensive to get the crane, Madam Speaker. We need to zero rate, especially also issues of physiotherapy, machines, so that when our children, especially children who are slow to walk, and maybe to be used in physiotherapy, especially in schools that are run under PWDs, Madam Speaker. I think this is what the Constitution has provided for. I want to appeal to the government. Let us give PWDs and, Madam Speaker, access to cards. I've seen counties. In fact, Madam Speaker, when you come to Nandi, you always get shocked. The PWDs of Nandi are only, when there is a PWD World Day for people living with disability, They are only given soda and mkate, or soda and bread only, and some blankets. That's how these people eat money meant for PWDs. Because you are demeaning them. You are saying the PWDs are what, only soda and bread and a blanket? Instead of even providing for the wheelchairs, for assistive devices, for designing offices and government offices and public transport with ramps and access, Madam Speaker. You know, Nandi is a very interesting county. It's a county of funny miracles, where you only give a PWD bread and soda, and you said you have assisted them. And that is how money are lost in counties. Madam Speaker, counties must be held accountable. Let them provide assistive devices. Let them provide necessary support, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, at least for me, from where I come in Nandi County, Madam Speaker, at least me, I'm the only one who cannot be taken to court to the DCI by a governor. Most of the young men in Nandi, when they criticize governor on social media or in funerals or in public functions, you are taken to DCI. I've seen two young men, a young lady and a woman, I think by the name called Vero, Madam Speaker, was taken to the DCI for only questioning non-availability of drugs in the Kapsabet County Referral Hospital. Madam Speaker, I think governors are becoming some demigods, and especially the governor for Nandi, because they are using the power they are given to abuse and frustrate the young people for questioning, Madam Speaker, the social audit. And that is why I'm questioning also, why are the PWDs of Nandi given only bread and soda? Yet they are a unique population that they should be given assistive devices, wheelchairs, among others, Madam Speaker. Finally, because I can see I still have 5 minutes, Madam Speaker, the state shall ensure the progressive implementation of the principle that at least 5% of the members of the public in elective, I don't know what we are doing in that part of elective, we are still doing badly. We need to tell Kenyans that you can be a PWD, but I can see the member of parliament for Westlands, Tim Wanyonyi. Madam Speaker, I think he's serving the 3rd term in parliament. Senator Otsoso, is it right? I think he's serving the 3rd term. Tim Wanyonyi, Madam Speaker, member of parliament Westlands. I want to thank the people of Westlands because they have shown the country that you can elect a PWD to represent you. And Tim Wanyonyi has represented the great people of Westlands just like any other able people, Madam Speaker. I know of a number of legislators, Madam Speaker. We are doing badly. The Constitution says 5%. So do 5% of 67 senators. How many should senators be PWD? Madam Speaker, at least we have one we are proud of, Senator Crystal Lasige. And also the appointive. I don't know, Senator Asike, you should bring a statement on the status of appointive. Be it, and I don't want you to be biased against only national government. I want you to request the compliance of this Article 54(2) in terms of a national executive. The Parliament, Madam Speaker, is failing. We are the lawmakers. I don't think the PWDs we have in Kenya, in Parliament, who work for us, Madam Speaker. If you look for it, ni kama kutafuta sindano kwa mahindi, kwa nyasi. Even here in Parliament, we are guilty as charged. Can we meet the 5% of our workforce under Parliamentary Service Commission? Unfortunately, Madam Speaker, you sit in the Speaker's panel and you can pass our message. The Commissioner, Senator Kinyo, was here. I would have asked, even the PSC might bring us, if they are compliant with 5% of the people living. The national executive, the county governments, the parastatals, Senator Asige, take the bull by its own and demand, and it be tabled in the Senate, Madam Speaker, so that we can be aware whether we are meeting 5%, Madam Speaker. And I know you as a senior legal practitioner in this republic and a former Secretary General of the ruling party. You can also assist us because you are a lawyer. I expect lawyers, Madam Speaker, even to give pro bono. As even, I don't know where we can include in the law, Senator Crystal, to also request that we get pro bono legal services for PWDs. Madam Speaker, can you believe where I come from, Nandils? Many workers who pluck tea get injured by war, Madam Speaker. Their hands are cut off and they are only paid peanuts. When they are working in those tea estates in Nandi and across other tea estates, Madam Speaker, they don't imagine that they will be disabled. But because of how they, and I know you have handled such matters, especially in Employment and Labor Relations Court, And I'm happy in KICC that there is a symposium on employment. Senator Crystal, we have another small, another dangerous, silent people that is forcing people to be, especially our tier states, because of pangas. People are losing their limbs, their fingers, their eyes. Because, Madam Speaker, as they do that job, it is very unfortunate. So, Madam Speaker, I want to appeal that let us widen. This thing is not only unique, Madam Speaker, to only people who are born with, but we get along, Madam Speaker. And there is a crisis. I went to court, in the labor court. You get people who are working in tea farms. In many other farms, Madam Speaker, they have lost their limbs, their fingers, their hands, Madam Speaker. Even another killer that is causing disability is the border. We need to also, I am happy that the President a few months ago launched training for borders. And I'm happy a number of even my chairman of border circle in Nandi attended. Madam Speaker, when you go to casualty in Moi Teaching and Referral, in Kapsabet, in all our facilities, even near KNH, there must be an accident caused because somebody is injured through motorbike. I'm not saying the borders are bad for the country. They are not, but we need to teach them so that they cannot continue to injure and cause grievous bodily harm and create, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to conclude with, since I don't know, I'm the seconder, but my time has been limited. Madam Speaker, I just want to go to obligation of counties, section 5.
Senator Chiralige, I'll give you only half a minute to conclude so that you second that. Point of order, Senator Wakoli.
Can you freeze that half a minute?
Frozen.
Thank you, Speaker. I want to standing order number 105. My good learned friend alleges of people being taken to DCI by His Excellency's governor. If a senator has sufficient reason to convince the Speaker that standing order, is it in order for the good advocate barrister to allege that bloggers or young people working online will end up being disabled by the standing governor? Is it in order to say that border are bad people? Are you talking about border riders or the motorbike itself? Thank you, Speaker.
Honorable Senator Chiralige, you know the firm rules of the standing order.
Correct.
And the procedure and the practice of this House.
Correct.
You cannot allege facts without proving them, especially when you're alleging them against a person who is not before this House. So you either substantiate or withdraw that.
Madam Speaker, I don't know because he has mixed me. There was an aspect of border riders, and then DCI. I didn't get him, but what I can put in perspective.
He was specific on the DCI.
No, what I was saying, I was using an example because it is a debate that young people, and you know, Madam Speaker, we can criticize the governor because it's a position. Even the presidents, even the executive, even parliament. That's why we criticize parliament as is, even the judiciary.
Honorable
We are not
Senator,
singling out an individual.
Honorable Senator, we know for a fact the governor of Nandi is one person.
Correct.
So withdraw that statement.
No, I
unless
will
you
not
have
withdraw. I will
substantiation.
bring to substantiate if you give me time.
You will substantiate?
Yes, if you give me time.
Okay, bring that
Yeah.
evidence tomorrow by 2:30.
Correct. Madam Speaker, finally, on the obligations of the county government in a minute, I think I'm happy access to free primary education, inclusion of persons with disability in the county public service board. I think the affirmative aspect of procurement. Because if you want these people, Madam Speaker, to work, empower them. And the only to empower them is giving them the finances. Madam Speaker, with those very, very many remarks, I want to thank Senator Crystal Lasige for this wonderful bill. I know the PWDs in this republic will be proud of the Senate for being part of midwifing this one of the wonderful bills and in fulfillment of Article 54 of the Constitution of Kenya 2010. Madam Speaker, with those very, very many remarks, allow me that I beg to second this bill.
Thank you, Senator Chiradige. Honorable Senators, I propose the question that the Persons with Disabilities Bill, Senate Bills number 7 of 2023, be now read a second time. I have a communication also from the chair on visiting teachers and students from Gatamayo High School in Kiambu County. Honorable Senators, in the public gallery, we have 48 students accompanied by 3 teachers from Gatamayo High School, Kiambu County, who are in the Senate on an education tour. Honorable Senators, in our usual tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them, and on behalf of Senate and on my own behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. Thank you. And I want to call upon Senator Joe Nyoto from Muranga to welcome the students together with Senator Otsotsi. Half a minute each.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity to welcome students and teachers of Gatamayo Boys High School. We want to thank the administrators of that particular school for choosing the Senate as a place where the students can come and learn. And we want to welcome them here, like you have said, Madam Speaker. And we want to tell the students that what they have seen happening here is exactly what they should aspire to be doing in the future. Very sober debates, very sober contributions, and this is what the Senate does. I know they will be taken through the roles of the Senate by the sergeant-at-arms and those that receive them, but Madam Speaker, I want to tell them that we were students like them. And we are here because first, we believed in God and we carry the belief in God in our hearts. We obeyed our teachers and our parents, and most of all, or above all, we worked hard. And so, our dear boys, sons from Gatamayo, welcome to the Senate. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Senator Joe, Senator Otsotsi.
Thank you. I'm Godfrey Otsotsi, the Senator of the good people of Vihiga County. I also join in welcoming the students from Kiambu County to this Senate this afternoon. Kiambu is a great county, and historically Kiambu has produced 2 presidents of this country. So you are welcome to the Senate, and I hope you learn a lot from what you are seeing around. Coming to the gallery is a very refreshing thing. I got interested in politics and leadership because in the 90s, when I was at the university, I used to frequent the public galleries. Those days, they used to allow members of the public to come to the galleries, and I learned a lot. I saw people like Martin Shikuku, I saw people like Mwai Kibaki, Raila Odinga, people like James Orengo, and I learned quite a lot. By then, William Ruto was not there. He came in 97. So he's a very recent politician. So I get to know a lot, and I got interested in politics, and I worked hard to become nominated member of parliament and later on the senator of the great people of Vihiga. So I'm sure you will learn 1, 2 things and you'll get interested, but for now, concentrate on your studies, grow in your academics, and become professionals and join politics after you have worked and understood how the environment works, how professionals work, to get experience and understand leadership from there. So welcome again any other time. And the senator of your county, the Miracle Senator, is my great friend and a very serious member of my committee, Senator Thangwa. And I call upon you to also emulate him, because he was an MCA, CEC, and later on he became the senator of the great people of Kiambu. So welcome to the Senate this afternoon.
Thank you, Senator. And now we will resume the debate on the Person with Disabilities Bill. And I want to call Senator Joe Nyoto Muranga County to proceed and debate.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to support this bill sponsored by Senator Asige. Madam Speaker, this is a bill that was brought to the Committee of Education that I chair, and you were able to go through most of the provisions in this particular bill. And Madam Speaker, we have also been able to organize as a committee a visit to institutions that teach this group of Kenyans, Madam Speaker. We have been able to go to Uasin Gishu County, and we were able to visit a school for the hearing impaired. I think that is the right way to put it. We were also able to visit those with some mental challenges. We were also able to visit a school for those with autism. And Madam Speaker, this is a group of Kenyans that we need to think very deeply about. And this bill could not have come at a better time. One thing we were told, most of these schools are understaffed. Why? Because especially in schools where, or in schools of those with the mental challenges, sometimes we were told that every learner may need to have a teacher for themselves. That is a ratio of 1:1. That is teacher-student ratio of 1:1, Madam Speaker. And so when this bill proposes allocation of more resources, especially to schools or to learning institutions, then, Madam Speaker, this is a bill that we should all support. And because counties are limited in a way in the matter of resources, Madam Speaker, I'm so happy that this bill puts obligations on the national government besides county governments. That, Madam Speaker, there should be minimum standards and guidelines to be adhered to by public transport vehicles also, because we are not only talking about learners. Because sometimes when you look at our public vehicles, we do not have any provision whatsoever for people with disability. In fact, the way they are made, the way the seats are arranged, there is no provision for that. And Madam Speaker, these are people, especially if you talk about somebody who is on a wheelchair, this is a person that needs to be accompanied by somebody else and by their wheelchairs, which take a lot of space. So, Madam Speaker, as a country, we must ask ourselves, what is the place of those living with disabilities in our society? Are we doing enough? Have we made enough provisions? Because, Madam Speaker, you will see some passenger vehicle operators even charging double fare for those that live with disability, because of course sometimes they may occupy more than one seat.
Honorable Senator.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I have to interrupt business right now because there was an earlier direction by the Speaker that at 5 p.m. the House will adjourn for Honorable Senator Mudigi to move a motion pursuant to Standing Order 37 of the Standing Orders. Honorable Mudigi.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move the following motion, that pursuant to Standing Order 37, the Senate do now adjourn to discuss a definite matter of urgent national importance, namely the systematic breach of speech, destruction of public and private property and livelihoods through repeated incitement of members of the Republic to civil disobedience and illegal public demonstrations and protests that climaxed with the sense of lawlessness witnessed in several parts of the country on 7th and 12th July 2023. Madam Speaker, in our country, Kenya, in every year, 5 years, we do election, and after election, we must have winners and losers. In G, around 30 years, we are doing election, but after election, after information of the winners, the losers always bring division and chaos and fighting. Around the election of 2012 and 2013, there was president who was called President Kibaki, and Raila Amolo Odinga was number 2. After election, it bring a lot of chaos, and after election, we communicated because of peace. They find unity, and before unity was a lot of problem. 2017 was an election of Mr. Uhuru Kenyatta and Amolo Raila. After election, they bring a lot of confusion and chaos. After Supreme Court, they communicated. After big war of division, they come together. Around 2022 was an election of our president, Samuel William Ruto. Ruto, he was pronounced the winner. Second loser was Raila Amolo. But after that, now it is about some years with a lot of confusion. After losing, Honorable Raila, he stated to the court of law. Finally, he was announced the winner, the loser. But after that, we are experiencing a lot of division of two parties. In Kenya, every time we have a lot of confusion, a lot of breaking of many houses, fighting, even burning cars of the people, and a lot of confusion. I can say about on 7th and 12th of this month was a lot of confusion. Many people were injured, others in the hospital. Many businesses were closed. After that, they extended even to break a big road, expressway, which the contractor of that road want to be paid about 700 million. But after that, there is another rumors about tomorrow and big maandamano. My question is about this. Is it possible for our government, Azimio, another Azimio, and our government of Kenya Kwanza, whether they can find a dialogue to sit together to see the way forward? Second, humble request to request whether Senate can constitute a team of commissioners, senators, to find the way forward, and also to see about that maandamano. In Kenya Kwanza, Azimio, were number which were mentioned about Raila, about Kioni, about Martha Karua, about Uhuru Kenyatta, former president, and if they receive, they will see in the mistake they are done, can take them to the court of law or other place. Finally, I propose Senator Siregei to second my motion. Madam Speaker, sir.
Senator Charadige.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to second the adjournment motion to discuss the issue of national importance as per our standing orders. Madam Speaker, I think the upshot of the argument of Senator Mundigi is based on Article number 37. Madam Speaker, allow me to read this provision because I've seen our colleagues in the minority side and Azimio One Kenya Alliance quoting it. But there is no part that is written that they should go to a demonstration and then when it turns violent, it is the right. Madam Speaker, it says every person has the right peacefully and unarmed to assemble, to demonstrate, to picket, and to present petitions to public authorities. Madam Speaker, I want to say the following. On 2 occasions, we have lost more than 15 Kenyans. Billions of properties have been destroyed. Many Kenyans have not accessed their places of work. Children have not gone to school. The economy has lost billions and billions of shillings in terms of tax and other turnovers, Madam Speaker. This has been perpetuated in the pretext of exercising Article 37 of the Constitution of Kenya, Madam Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, sorry, it is very unfortunate that as a country, one person continues to hold the country to hostage because of being power hungry, Madam Speaker. In 1997, in 2007, in 2013, in 2017, the signature, tactics, and agenda is similar. Go to an election, lose an election, intimidate, emasculate, blackmail, force to go into government through an handshake, blackmail, cooperation, and nusumkate kind of arrangement, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, it goes without saying that as a country...
What is your point of order?
Madam Speaker, you know this is a house of honor, and this is a house of record. And we must protect the Senate at all costs.
What's your point of order, please?
I'm on standing order number 105, Madam Speaker. When you are given an opportunity to address the Senate, I think you must be factual. Senator Cherigei, who is my friend and my neighbor, has made some allegations by saying one person has done this, has fought his ways to government. It is important for him to produce the facts, content of speech, to support his allegations. Because we cannot allow people to use the floor of Senate to make allegations that they make on the street there or in funerals or in political rallies. This is the Senate of the Republic of Kenya. We want facts to be tabled. So is he in order, under standing order number 105, to make statements which are not factual, statements which cannot be substantiated? And I demand that he substantiates by providing tangible evidence to support the allegations that he has made, not statements that he makes in funerals or in a bus or on the streets.
Can you
This is a House of Parliament, must be respected,
Senator
Madam Speaker.
Osotsi, I wish to seek your very clear statement of what you need him to clarify, the specifics. The specific statement.
Madam Speaker, you have heard what he has said and is unanswered. He has talked of one individual. He needs to tell us who is this one individual. And then he has talked about this one individual after every election fighting to get into government through the handshake. We want to know the full facts of what he said. And it must be tabled in this house. And Madam Speaker, we are cheapening this house through statements like this, made by people who have no regard to the status of Senate in this republic, Madam
Now
Speaker.
I've understood what you have asked for. I will now direct Senator Cherigei to proceed on with his debate and clarify the one individual, because the name is not yet stated. Maybe he will clarify. Senator Osotsi, don't put the cart before the horse.
Yes.
Allow him to finish his submission.
Yes.
Then you can hear who the individual is.
In fact, I want to assist Senator Otsotsi that there is a court matter already in Speaker Mate of the Embu that you cannot challenge a process at the beginning. You wait until I finish my submission. But as Speaker, I want to put a record. You know, Senator Otsotsi might be, maybe he's a member of a bar. Personally, I'm a teetotaler. I don't take alcohol. So maybe he is recovering from hangovers of the long weekend, Madam Speaker. But as Speaker, the one person, and it is a fact, the one person I'm talking about is Azimio Raila Odinga. And it is a fact. In 2007, he pushed for a government of grand coalition government. It is in the public. Madam Speaker, the law talks about judicial notice. Under criminal procedure, not a civil procedure code, Madam Speaker, Criminal Procedure Act
so that we can
is
make progress.
very clear.
Finish
There
your
is what we
submission
call-
first, and then I'll give you a chance. Resume your seat, Senator.
Madam Speaker,
Senator
Madam
Otsotsi,
Speaker, and give me
resume.
my time because he interrupted my trail of thought. Madam Speaker, how can I substantiate the obvious? You can't, Madam Speaker. It is even judicially noticed, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we must stop this culture. The Constitution talks about national values and principles of good governance. One of the tenets or principles is rule of law. In this country, Madam Speaker, when we go to an election, I don't know of any senator, including Senator Otsotsi, my neighbor. I know the opponent and the competitor of Senator Otsotsi. I am not aware that the person he defeated has gone for an mandamano to take away his seat, Madam Speaker. And I want to tell the country, Madam Speaker, the illegal demonstrations being perpetuated by Azimio One Kenya lands is no longer about what they are saying about cost of living or the high cost of food. It is that they are power hungry, Madam Speaker. They want to take the power because they don't have an alternative, Madam Speaker. There is nothing they have given on the table. Madam Speaker, when Kenya Kwanza lands, Madam Speaker, in conclusion, just I have a minute, when Kenya Kwanza lands, gave bipartisan, Azimio gave bipartisan talks, but they are the ones.
You have half a minute to second.
Madam Speaker, and therefore I want to ask the police tomorrow to be alert. There is no demonstrations that shall be done. There is no destruction of property or any other form, Madam Speaker, and therefore I beg to second.
Honorable Senators, I propose the question that pursuant to Standing Order 37, the Senate do now adjourn to discuss a definite matter of urgent national importance, namely the systematic breach of peace, destruction of public and private property and livelihoods through repeated incitement of members of the public to civil disobedience and illegal public demonstrations and protests that climaxed with the scenes of lawlessness witnessed in several parts of the country on 7th and 12th July 2023. As many as are of... we will now allow for debate on this. Senator Manzo Daniel Kitonga.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Article 1 of the Constitution says that the power, sovereign of this nation, and talks of the power belonging to the
Senator
people.
Manzo, you'll have 5 minutes.
Yes, thank you. Talks of sovereignty of the people, and that under Article 2 of the Constitution, this power of the people is donated to Parliament, is donated to executive, and is also donated to judiciary in equal measure, and that Parliament can debate matters related to people like this one we are doing. Article 37, which has just been quoted here, allows peaceful demonstration. In Kenya, we've been having peaceful demonstration, and I'll give 2 examples. The day Raila Odinga was sworn as the people's president, the police did not interfere, no single person was killed, and even a person selling sweets in that function did not lose a sweat or money. The other day when Honorable Raila Odinga took a matatu to town, did his tea and his shoes were brushed. He had a very big meeting in the middle of town. The police did not come. Nobody's shop was looted. Nothing was destroyed. The problem has been when the law has not been followed. The law of unlawful, which explains this article, that 7, is found in the Penal Code 78 and 79, and also the Public Order Act, which has regulations thereunder. Those regulations provide for peaceful demonstration, and should a person in the rank of inspector of police find that a meeting is going differently, they are supposed to issue proclamation and give people 15 minutes to clear. But unfortunately, the proclamation in this country has been a firing of a tear gas as a response. And unfortunately, that has caused a problem. So I want to really honestly state that if people's demonstrations are respected, and that's why the UN has supported this particular thing and issued a statement under human rights that you cannot disrupt peaceful demonstrations. And if the police never bothers, even tomorrow, if they keep away, not a single person will be armed, not a single thing will be looted. But unfortunately, we've had statements from politicians. To quote the leader of majority in the National Assembly, and also my very good friend, Honorable Moses Kuria, who was in Parliament with me for 2 terms. They have issued tweets, they have issued statements. And unfortunately, these statements amount to preparation of committee of genocide in this country. Already, what is happening in Sondo is politically instigated. It is not a border problem. It is not a border problem. It has been described as a border problem by the Honorable Kidiki. It is not a border problem. It is a political problem, and we should solve it as such. I know the senator.
What's your point of order, Senator Chiradige?
Madam Speaker, I raise under standing order number 105 on the authenticity of facts. Can the good senator withdraw or provide evidence that the altercation that was seen in the border town of Sondu between Kericho and Kisumu counties, Madam Speaker, it comes from Makauni very far. Some of us who are neighbors know that it was about the border issue and the issue of leaflets from some of the political leaders from Nyanza region, Madam Speaker. Can he provide evidence or withdraw?
No. Just I will reply. I will reply, Madam Speaker, and I can. My apologies.
So that we have order in the House, can you respond to the point of order that has...
Thank you. The Honorable Kidiki issued statement, and I've been talking to the senator, the leader of majority in this House, who has explained to me the whole situation. My interpretation of the law, which is very clear, those are tribal clashes, and the leaders are doing everything in the 2 counties to mediate. The 2 senators are mediating, and they are making sure nothing goes wrong and no other Kenyan is injured, and I think I congratulate them for that, but that again is preparation for committee of genocide. Tomorrow, vigilantes have been arranged to come and confront demonstrators.
Honorable Senator Manzo, you know that is a very serious national matter, which is live. You would need to substantiate. Can you bring evidence to that effect? Senator Manzo, are you able to clarify that? You are. Can you provide evidence by tomorrow, 2:30? Please do. We proceed.
I proceed
Now
to say that also the plans, just 1 minute.
Let him finish, I'll give you a chance.
The planned demonstrations tomorrow, there are statements to the fact that the tactics have changed, and that Minister Kuria from his street and the leader of majority in the National Assembly have organized vigilantes to confront peaceful demonstrators. Again, that is preparation to commit a felony, namely genocide. So the majority side is preparing to commit genocide in this country.
point of order from Senator Kajwang and then Senator Dangwa, Karungo Dangwa.
Madam Speaker, we are dealing with very sensitive national issues. And Madam Speaker, it cannot be allowed that it goes on the record of this House, the assertions by Senator Cherargei, that the clashes in Sondu are instigated by Nyanza leaders who are circulating leaflets. Can he, under the standing orders, substantiate or otherwise apologize and withdraw? And Madam Speaker, as you have directed, and it is unprecedented for the chair to demand for evidence from a member when a member is debating, because the chair is a referee. Madam Speaker, you must also use the same yardstick and the same rule you have used to declare that Senator Cherargei must bring evidence to that assertion if he fails to withdraw and apologize. Because, Madam Speaker, I come from Homa Bay that borders Sondu. I come from Homa Bay that borders Nandi. No leader from Luoland or Nyanza has ever sat down, has ever conspired to get arrows, to get spears, and to do oaths. Oaths are not done in the Luo community, Madam Speaker. Oaths are done in the neighboring community. My community does not use bows and arrows, Madam Speaker.
What is your
So
point
Senator
of order?
Cherargei must be compelled to withdraw and apologize, or else he must substantiate whatever is assertion that Nyanza leaders are killing people in Sondu. And Madam Speaker, those are the kind of utterances that should automatically lead to a member being thrown out of this House, because they are utterances that can inflame a nation that is already at pains.
Honorable Senator Kajwang, I have directed that Honorable Manzo to bring evidence to support what he alleged. Equally, so I can give directions, Senator Kajwang. Let's have order in the House. I will equally direct Senator Cherargei to respond to that issue before I give a direction on it.
Madam Speaker, I don't know why you have allowed my chair, Senator Kajwang, to profile a certain community. That is so wrong. Madam Speaker, I am aware and I have evidence that certain political leaders from the neighboring Kisumu County were issuing leaflets, and I will table the evidence tomorrow from 2:30, Madam Speaker, because we have evidence. We cannot just make statements for the sake of making it, Madam Speaker. And I don't know why Senator Kajwang is getting emotional, and I've said I will table the evidence. We cannot allow, Madam Speaker, that issue of Sondu is a very sensitive issue. And while we appeal peace, we cannot allow certain political leaders to use, because we are aware, Madam Speaker, they wanted to use the issue of Sondu to try and instigate and bring lawlessness, Madam Speaker. And I'm going to table the evidence, Madam Speaker.
Honorable senators, let's have order now. Honorable Cherargei, Senator Cherargei, you'll table that evidence equally with Senator Manzo at 2:30. These are matters of serious importance, and we must not issue any statement that is reckless regarding that conflict from either side of the House. Karungo Dangwa.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I don't like the direction that we are taking as a House, Madam Speaker. But my point of order was on Senator Maanzo when he is quoting things that he has seen in the media. Madam Speaker, you have numerously ruled that we cannot quote what we see in the media because nobody can be able to substantiate. He's mentioning the names of the CSs. We don't know what he read. We don't know whether it was his computer that was faulty, his Android phone, or maybe, Madam Speaker, he did not read it well. So I would want to request you, Madam Speaker, to request Senator Maanzo to stop quoting what he reads in the social media. Otherwise, you'll be misleading this House, and you cannot be able to substantiate. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable senators, regarding matters that are being aired on media, we know the cardinal principles and the rules of this House, and we would urge senators to refrain from breaching the standing orders and keep to the strict rule, especially when you're discussing a matter of this nature. So we will proceed on, and I will give chance to Senator David Wakoli Wafula.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika kwa nafasi hii ambayo umenipa kuchangia yale ambayo Senator Mundigi ametaja. Katiba inatupa ruhusa ya kumiliki mali na rasilimali hapa Kenya. Yale yanayojiri Mheshimiwa Spika ni kinaya na kinyume cha matarajio ya wanademokrasia hapa Kenya, kwa sababu maandamano, jinsi tunajua sisi wa imani wa Kristo, maandamano ni ya kubeba matawi, mabango kwa amani. Tumeona maandamano ya madaktari Kenya hii, tumeona maandamano ya walimu Kenya hii, tumeona maandamano ya wakulima Kenya hii. Haya maandamano yote hakujawahi kuwa na bugdha ama purukushani yoyote, uharibifu wa mali na vile vile watu kuumia. Haya maandamano ambayo kwa mabano wanasema wanademokrasia wanashinikiza, sijui wanataka tupoteze maisha ya watu wangapi ndio waseme haya ni maandamano. Sijui wanataka watu wangapi wajeruhiwe Kenya hii ndio waseme ni maandamano. Wakenya walipokuwa wanalima mashamba, Mheshimiwa Spika, walikuwa wamebeba vifuria wakitembea. Wakenya walipoenda kuchukua mbolea kwenye magala ya halmashauri ya nafaka, hawa watu walikuwa wanabwata na kutembea. Wakenya walipokuwa wanapuliza madawa kwa mahindi yao, ndugu zangu walikuwa kwa vyombo vya habari wakibwata. Leo watu karibu wanavuna, Mheshimiwa Spika, badala ya kuandaa vifuria kukaribisha mavuno ya kiteule, ndugu zetu wamewatoa vijana wenye misuli na nishati ya kujenga nchi. Wako kwenye barase za nchi hii wakipiga mayowe na kuweka vifuria kwenye kichwa. Sijui ni dini ipi, sijui ni tamaduni ipi ama itikadi zinazo waruhusu wasomi wa tajriba kama hii kwenye jumba la Senate kubeba vifuria kwenye vichwa, Mheshimiwa Spika, kadamnasi vya vyombo vya habari dunia nzima, kwamba ukiweka kifuria kwenye kichwa, Mheshimiwa Spika, bei ya bidhaa na chakula itashuka. Mheshimiwa Spika, sijui ni dini ipi ama ni maombi yapi ya wanataraji, lakini ni kusema kwamba katiba inatupa nafasi vile vile ya kutembea na kuhusiana na watu mbalimbali. Yale tunayaona katika barabara za Kenya, barabara zinafungwa, magari yanapigwa na kuteketezwa. Sijui Wakenya watatembelea nani? Wakenya watakuwa wageni wa nani? Wakenya watapata huduma za usafiri, za matibabu, za usalama kivipi iwapo maandamano ya kidemokrasia yanaweza kusababisha kuteketezwa kwa bidhaa katika miji ya Kenya? Sijui wanataka tuteketeze mali kiasi kipi ili tujue kwamba haya ni maandamano. Hili ni jumba la Senate, watu waje wajieleze, wajitetee. Kuna jumba la kitaifa, watu waje wajitetee. Hivi sasa tumekuwa tunatunga sheria mbalimbali za kilimo na ufugaji, hawasemi chochote. Bei ya unga imekuwa juu, hakuna mtu anapinga. Ukienda Tanzania, ukienda Uganda, ukienda nchi za ughaibuni, hali ya maisha imepanda. Lakini sijaona Waingereza wakibeba vifuria kwenye kichwa. Sijaona ndugu zetu wa Tanzania wakibeba vifuria kwenye kichwa. Falsafa ya sufuria kichwani imetoka wapi? Mimi naomba Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa mara ya kwanza katika Kenya hii, yale ambayo viongozi wanatamka mbele ya umma na kupiga vifua kwamba lazima nchi isimame, kwamba lazima biashara zivunjwe, hiyo sio demokrasia, hiyo sio haki ya Wakenya. Mimi naomba viongozi tumakinike, tuwe majasiri, tusimame wima na tujadili, tubainishe mbichi na mbivu kikatiba, tusuluhishe mambo haya, lakini sio yale ambayo naona kwenye barasi za nchi ya Kenya. Mwisho kabisa, kuna tabia mbovu ambayo nimeona Mheshimiwa Spika, ndugu zetu wanatumia vyombo vya habari kusambaza
Senator Wakoli, your time is up. Senator Moses Kajwang, Otieno.
Madam Speaker, I rise to contribute to this motion that has been brought by Senator Mundigi. When Senator Mundigi gave notice of this adjournment motion, after 5 minutes, he was again on the floor of the Senate asking for a statement on the subsidized fertilizer scheme, alleging that the subsidized fertilizer is unavailable, it has been brought too late, and it is not serving the ends that it's supposed to serve. What a contradiction, Madam Speaker. And I want to tell Senator Mundigi, the mover of this motion, that tomorrow we shall be on the streets to ask for questions about that subsidized fertilizer. Madam Speaker, I want to assure Senator Cherargei, who also spoke to that statement, and Madam Speaker, I was not in the chamber, but I was following, and he made a very eloquent, a very articulate rider on that statement, saying that when he was in Nandi, the farmers said it should extend beyond maize farmers, it should go to sugarcane farmers, it should go to other farmers. Tomorrow we shall be on the streets demanding that the fertilizer goes to sugarcane farmers.
Senator Moses Kajwang, I want you to heed when I rise to speak on something. Senator Med, what's your point of order?
Speaker, I would not want to have interrupted my chair. I'm actually surprised that he's saying that tomorrow he will not be in the House, where we'll be having 2 sessions in the morning and one in the afternoon. But my point of order is that on the Standing Order 105 Statement of Facts, Senator Kajwang, my chair, is alleging that Senator Mundigi rose and brought a statement to this House to say that there's no fertilizer, or fertilizer is not being distributed. And if he had given time, or he had, he had read the statement, you know that the question that Senator Mundigi asked is the distribution to the smallest devolved units. It's not availability of the fertilizer, Madam Speaker. The question of availability, Madam Speaker, the government of Kenya, we cannot be disrupted. The government of Kenya, Madam Speaker.
Wait for your turn, my brother.
The government of Kenya, Madam Speaker.
Senator Kajwang, can you be orderly? Resume your seat. Be orderly.
Yeah.
I gave him a chance to speak.
Let's
have order. Senator Med has the floor.
The person to define what amounts to a point of order is the Speaker. So just hold your horses. Madam Speaker, the government has intimated that we have distributed 5 million bags of fertilizer, Madam Speaker, and the question that Madam Speaker, the question that Senator Mundigi asked,
can we have order from the minority side? You are not the one guiding the House. Can you have order? Senator Medu, finish your point of order.
No,
let's have order from Senator Kajwang.
I feel that Senator Kajwang is grossly
out of order.
Is out of order for misleading the House. That the statement that was sought by Senator Mundigi was about availability of fertilizer, Madam Speaker.
Senator Kajwang, resume your debate.
Madam
and
Speaker,
respond to the issues of correctness of what you have stated.
Madam Speaker, Senator Methu can decide to believe what he wants to believe. But this is the intellectual amnesia that this House has been accused of. And if he wants me to withdraw, I withdraw. And if that's going to make him happy, then allow me to proceed. Madam Speaker, I want to stand with the many men and women who have been felled by police bullets while they are only exercising their rights that are enshrined in the Constitution. Madam Speaker, there are people in this country who wish to rule like Moi did. Unfortunately, they cannot rule like Moi because they don't have the constitution that Moi had. There are people who think that they can rule like Kibaki. Unfortunately, they do not have the intellectual infrastructure and capacity to rule the way Kibaki did. Madam Speaker, we shall be on the streets tomorrow in pursuit of our economic, political, and social rights that are in the Constitution. And Madam Speaker, those rights are not granted by the Constitution. They are not granted by the state. the state and the Constitution are mere custodians of those rights on behalf of the people of Kenya. And so, when you see people out there with sufurias on their heads, and Madam Speaker, I've also not seen people walking around with wheelbarrows as a transformational economic model. So just allow us to walk with sufurias the way you also bamboozled the nation with wheelbarrows. And today, that wheelbarrow, Madam Speaker, is not moving because instead of greasing the wheelbarrow, they have poured sand on the wheels of that wheelbarrow. They have poured sand by making sure that petroleum is inaccessible, Madam Speaker. Just this week, a parent called me and told me that the school has imposed an additional 10,000 fee on all parents. Why? Because the cost of basic food and commodities has gone up, and school principals have to make sure that their children eat. I know the children that are sitting in the Speaker's gallery today, the parents and the teachers whose children are here in the Senate. Understand me when I say that even schools are unable to make ends meet. Madam Speaker, law and order is a responsibility of the police to maintain. And that is a duty that has been granted to the police by the Constitution of Kenya. What our duty as the opposition and
Senator
our duty as majority of Kenyans is...
Senator Kajwang, let's hear the point of order.
Speaker, I raise under Standing Order number 98 and 105 on statement of fact. Senator Kajwang, who is my chair, is stating that the price of cost of living and food has gone up. Yet, 1 year ago, his party leader, that's Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta, were in power. And the cost of unga was 230 shillings. Now, Madam Speaker, the price of unga has come down to 170 shillings. Why did they not demonstrate? Madam Speaker, and I can tell them, there is no one. He has said that some people want to rule like Moi or Kibaki. But we don't want to lose like Raila Odinga perpetually, Madam Speaker. We cannot. My point of order is that let the facts, understanding 105, Madam Speaker. But Madam Speaker, you don't need to shout. This is not a marketplace. Can you request us? You don't need to shout. You just need to listen. You don't need. This is not a shouting match, Madam Speaker. The minority side, they always work out. They can work out. We don't care. They can work out. Madam Speaker, my point of order is they can work out. Who are they? They can work out. Madam Speaker, understanding 105. Madam Speaker, understanding 105.
Are you listening?
The Senator of Homa Bay.
Order. I'm talking, Senator Cheralige. Senator Cheralige, when the chair is speaking, you must heed.
Correct.
Point of order.
Madam Speaker, you need also to be protected because they are shouting, you can't hear. Madam Speaker, understanding 105 on responsible statement of fact. The Senator of Homa Bay, my very good friend, Madam Speaker, has alleged that the cost of living is high now. Yet 8 months, 9 months, when his party leader and Uhuru Kenyatta were in power, the cost of living was even very high. Is it in order, Madam Speaker, when we had the price of unga was 230 shillings. Now the price of unga is 170 shillings, Madam Speaker.
In fact, resume your seat because that point was already spoken. Resume your seat. Senator Kajwang. Senator Eddy, Senator Kajwang has the floor.
Madam Speaker, allow me to, in response, educate Senator Cherargei on something called fiscal policy.
I have given you direction, Senator
And
Eddy.
there are two critical elements when you're considering fiscal policy. 1 is the rate of inflation, 2 is interest rates, and 3 is forex rates. Madam Speaker, all these numbers have gone up. And Madam Speaker, I think Senator Cherargei should perhaps educate...
Senator Kajwang, do you want to be informed by Senator Eddy?
Yes, I'd like to be informed.
Resume your seat. Donate your time to Senator Eddy.
Madam, it's not a donation, Madam Speaker.
It's okay. Let him continue. Proceed.
I wish to inform my friend Senator Kajwang that the standing orders of this House Standing Order number 101 protects you from responding to Senator Cherargei, who stood on a point of order and explicitly mentioned the name of Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga and mentioned the name of Honorable President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. Madam Speaker, is a president. Whether you like it or not, is a president. You will never be. You will never be. Don't shout at me. You will never be a president. You will never be a president. Respect the former president. He's former, but you'll never be Cherargei. You will never be a president. Respect him. Madam Speaker, can I be heard in silent? I can make noise than Cherargei can make noise in this house. Madam Speaker, I can make noise than Cherargei can make noise in this house. You will not make noise to me, Cherargei.
Senator Eddie, you are bordering on being out of order. Senator Cherargei, I give you the first warning. Senator Eddie, I give you the first warning. If you continue being out of order, you will have to exit from this session. That's the direction of the chair. If you continue being out of order, I will put you on the second. Senator Eddie, you maintain order as you give your submissions.
Madam Speaker, I was informing my colleague, Senator Kajwang, that he doesn't need to respond to the kind of lack of intellectual engagement by Senator Cherargei with our standing orders. Standing Order number 101 says this: neither the personal conduct of the President, nor the conduct of the Speaker or any other judge, nor the judicial conduct of any other person performing judicial function, nor any other conduct of the head of state or government or representative in Kenya of any friendly country, or the conduct of the holder of any office whose removal from such office is dependent on a decision of the Senate, shall be referred to adversely, except upon specific substantive motion, of which at least 3 days notice has to be given.
He is duly informed. Proceed on, Senator Ojwang.
There's no point of order for you.
Madam Speaker.
Hold your peace,
Madam
Senator
Speaker, speaking on
Cherargei.
behalf of the people of Homa Bay, I want to assure this House that we shall continue with our peaceful protests on behalf of the 50 million Kenyans who cannot afford a meal, on behalf of the Uber drivers who went to the street last week, on behalf of the Matatu drivers and long-distance truck drivers who went to the street last week, on behalf of the children of this country who cannot get as many meals as the children of Senator Cherargei, on behalf of the police who are being misused, who are being abused, and who are being...
Senator Cherargei,
Madam
maintain
Speaker,
order.
I can't... Madam Speaker, please protect me.
Half a minute, finish.
Madam Speaker, we shall continue with our peaceful protest, and we shall do it on behalf of the many martyrs that have been killed by police using illegal and unlawful orders from a presidency and an executive that has stopped caring about its people.
Honorable senators, let's have... Honorable senators, you are pushing the chair to a corner, and I will definitely throw someone out of this session. I'll throw the honorable members who are out of order from participating in this session. Let's resume the debate, but maintain order. Senator Joe Nyoto.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I stand to support the motion moved by Senator Mundigi of Embu County. Madam Speaker, it is all over the media and everywhere that there will be demonstrations tomorrow in many parts of Kenya. But Madam Speaker, like those who have spoken before me have said, there are very many avenues of people expressing their grievances, Madam Speaker. I do not believe that you can only go to the streets to express yourself or to make your grievances, Madam Speaker. I say this knowing very well that we have bipartisan talks that had been initiated, Madam Speaker, and which, if the opposition of the minority side wanted to exploit, if there were people who were interested in peace in this country, Madam Speaker, I think that is the forum that they would have maximized use of in order for them to bring on board all the issues that take them to the street tomorrow, and they say also on Thursday and Friday, Madam Speaker. I am not a lawyer, but I've listened keenly to Senator Cherargei take us through the provisions of Section 37 of the Constitution, Madam Speaker. And in that particular provision in the Constitution, yes, people have the right to picket, to demonstrate, and to present a petition, Madam Speaker. Now, looking at the demonstrations that happened last week, somebody is left wondering which public office were those demonstrating on the expressway and damaging the same. Where were they going to present this petition in that particular area, Madam Speaker? So clearly there is malice in these demonstrations, Madam Speaker, and this must be called out, because if Kenya belongs to all of us, and if we want to continue with our country as safe, Madam Speaker, we cannot afford to read only some parts of the Constitution. Let people demonstrate, let them take the petitions that they have to the right government offices, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, there have been many instances, and sorry, my paper keep falling. There have been many instances of the minority side talking about these demos. Madam Speaker, we have seen where it started. First of all, it was that the server must be opened, Madam Speaker. Then it mutated. Now it's about the cost of living. Come on. Nobody doesn't know why the cost of living has gone high. Ukraine war is something that everybody knows about. Madam Speaker, we know the seasons. We know I come from a county that has agriculture as a backbone, Madam Speaker. And we know that we have had about...
Senator Wafula, you have a point of order. Do you want to be informed by Senator?
As long as it will be his own time, Madam Speaker, that you are going to freeze my time.
That's okay, sit.
Yeah, so Madam Speaker...
Take your seat. He will give you the information he wants to help you with.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika. Arifa ambayo ningependa kuongezea ndugu yangu ni kwamba kuliwahi kuwa na waziri wa ukulima Kenya hii na alipewa bilioni 14 kuhakikisha mahindi na nafaka yanapandwa katika Galana Gulalu. Lakini walipong'atuka ofisini hata magunia 20 peke yake hangeweza pata. Bilioni 14, Mheshimiwa Spika, na sasa wameungana, wamebeba vifuria kwenye kichwa. Ni kinaya na kejeli kwa demokrasia nchi ya Kenya. Asante Mheshimiwa Spika.
Proceed, Senator Newton. What's your point of order, Honorable Katibu?
Nimemsikiza Mheshimiwa Wakoli kwa makini, lakini Kenya hii inajulikana, watu ambao walikula pesa ya mahindi anajulikana ni mmoja peke yake hapa, na hatuna haja ya kumtaja. Asante. Na kuna ushahidi.
Proceed on, Senator Nyoto. Senator Nyoto, let's have order, senators. Honorable senators, let's have order. Senator Nyoto, resume the debate.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Senator Wakoli, for informing me. Madam Speaker, like I had said, this is our country. I don't know why the Azimio side still wants to carry out the demonstrations tomorrow, knowing very well, Madam Speaker, that these demonstrations are costing lives of Kenyans, Madam Speaker. They may want to say, Madam Speaker, they may want to say that the police are shooting these people.
Osotsi, you'll wait for your turn to debate. Don't shout when a senator. Respect the senator while on the floor.
So thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And nobody doesn't know, because we watch on TV, nobody doesn't know. We have seen images of a policeman scampering for his safety, Madam Speaker. We have seen the police being attacked by these so-called demonstrators, Madam Speaker. We have seen them pelt the police with stones, Madam Speaker. So sometimes when these shootings happen, thank you. You can inform me, Senator Cherargei. Please freeze my time.
Nyoto, do you wish to be informed by Senator Cherargei?
Yes, I do, Madam.
Senator Cherargei.
Madam Speaker, I would like to inform Senator Joe Nyutu that one of the people who has been chasing the police to safety is the Nairobi Senator, Senator Sifuna. You saw him chasing the police at KICC. I saw until, not for safety. Madam Speaker, when we say they are chasing, including their leaders led by Senator Sifuna, was chasing an OCS, not an ordinary sergeant, Madam Speaker. So what Senator Nyutu is saying is correct. It is the demonstrators who are attacking the police. It is not the police attacking the demonstrators, led by Senator Sifuna, who has been chasing around the OCS. Let him chase me, we'll know who I am.
Senator Joe Nyutu, proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Senator Cherargei. I didn't know that actually Senator Sifuna was the chief goon in this particular attack, Madam Speaker.
Your time is up, Senator Nyutu. Resume your seat. Senator Beth Siengo.
Asante sana, Bi Speaker. Nasimama kuchangia mjadala ulioletwa na Senator wa Embu Mundigi. Bi Speaker, ningetaka kusema kwamba ni kikatiba ni halali kwa watu kuandamana na kuleta malalamishi yao kwa viongozi na kulalamikia mambo ambayo haiendi sawa kwa maisha yao. Bi Speaker, ninasikitika kwamba maandamano imechukuliwa kama ni ya viongozi, kama imepangwa na party leader wangu, kama inapangwa na Senator Sifuna, kama imepangwa na viongozi wa Azimio. Bali maandamano inayoendelea ni ya wananchi wenyewe ambao wanaumia na maisha jinsi ilivyo. Maisha imepanda, Bi Speaker, na wananchi wameshindwa kupata chakula, wameshindwa kulipia karo ya watoto, wameshindwa kujibudu kimaisha. Kwa hivyo ni wananchi wenyewe ambao wanadai haki yao. Bi Speaker, sasa Bi Speaker, ninashangaa kwamba Senator Cherargei ametoka kwenda kuchukua muda wako na bado niko hapa kwa floor. Bi Speaker,
just hold. Senator Sifuna, approach the chair. Approach the chair. Proceed, Senator Beth.
Ninaomba kusema mambo yaliyoko inaniuma sana.
Resume, Senator Beth.
Asante Bi Speaker. Ningetaka kusema kwamba maandamano ambayo inaendelea ni wananchi wenyewe wa Kenya wanajitetea na kudai haki yao. Si kwamba ati maandamano imepangwa na viongozi wa Azimio, kwa sababu wa Kenya wenyewe ndo wanaumia. Bi Speaker, yale mambo yanaendelea kusema kwamba ati wa Kenya wanasukumwa kwenda kuuliwa, hiyo ni uongo, kwa sababu tunajua vizuri sana kwamba katiba yetu ya Kenya inapea mwananchi nguvu na uweza na akona haki ya kuungana kutetea haki yake. Kwa hivyo ile haki mwananchi akonayo na ameipitisha kwa viongozi, anaweza dai hayo mamlaka na irudishe, ndiposa andai haki yake. Bi Speaker, ningetaka kusema kwamba hii ni nyumba ya heshima, na kwa hakika Senate wananchi wanatutegemea. Itakuwa ni vibaya sana kama kutasimama kiongozi hapa aseme uongo kwamba ati wale wanaoenda maandamano ndio wanasababisha uharibifu wa mali, ndio wanasababisha vifo. Na tunajua vizuri sana kama sisi wanaazimio tungeachwa kuenda kwa barabara na kudai haki yetu bila kuingiliwa na polisi, bila kuingiliwa na wauni ambao wanapangwa na senators kama Cherargei, basi hakungekuwa na furugu ya yoyote.
What's your point of order, Senator Meth?
Because we would not want to keep interrupting our colleagues, Madam Speaker, but I find it imputing very improper motive, Madam Speaker, for a senator to impute that Senator Cherargei is organizing goons to counter protesters, Madam Speaker. So that is against the rules of debate, Madam Speaker, unless Senator Beth can be able to substantiate that Senator Cherargei organizes goons to counter protesters. Then I find it grossly out of order.
Resume your seat. Senator Beth, can you substantiate that statement? That's a weighty statement.
Asante Bi Speaker. Kwa kweli ninaweza elezea, kwa sababu tukiwa hapa sisi wote ni shahidi. Senator Cherargei ameita Senator Sifuna goon. Hiyo ni kumaanisha nini? Kwa hivyo hao ndo wanapanga na kuchochea wananchi. Senator kama Senator Cherargei, Senator Medhu wanachochea wananchi ndiposa waonyeshe kwamba sisi ndio tuko na shida.
The chair is speaking now. I have asked you, Senator Beth, to substantiate that there is an organization of goons by Senator Cherargei. If you have, or you withdraw that or substantiate. Let's have order, senators. I'm with Senator Beth and Senator Cherargei. Just the two. Senator Methu, let's have order. Senator Beth, you withdraw.
Asante Bi Speaker. Hakika ninajua kuna ushahidi Bi Speaker. Nitaleta ushahidi, maana Senator Cherargei ameiweka kwa Twitter, imesambaa kwa social media. Kwa hivyo hakuna kitu ya kuficha. Ni ukweli, ni ukweli. Kwa hivyo kama niko na ushahidi,
Senator Beth, I direct you to give that substantiation and evidence tomorrow 2:30. Point of information, Senator Kajwang.
Yes, Bi Speaker, nimekumbali.
Madam Speaker, I wanted to inform Senator Beth Siengo because she said that if the police did not interfere with peaceful protesters when the demo started, and Madam Speaker, I wanted to inform Senator Beth Siengo that on the first day that the people of Kenya decided to come out to protest, the people of South Africa also did the same, led by the Economic Freedom Fighters, EFF. And Madam Speaker, and Senator Siengo, the difference is that in South Africa, the EFF were accompanied by the police, they were given security, law and order was maintained, whereas in Kenya, the peaceful protesters were bastardized, they were tear gassed, water cannons were unleashed on them. And Madam Speaker, the last bit of that information is that Israel has had daily protests for more than 6 months. France has had protests. The United States of America occupied the Capitol. Remember when Obama was president, and even when Donald Trump was president. Madam Speaker, the information I want to give Senator Siengo is that Kenyans, if left alone to exercise their democratic rights, Kenyans are the most sensible people,
Senator
and
Medo,
Kenyans believe
what's your
in a
point of
state.
order?
But I'm giving information. Surely.
Has a point of
Surely.
order.
I'm on a point of order.
Senator Kajwang, resume your seat. We hear the
Can
point
I
of
conclude?
order.
I'm still informing Senator Siengo. I'm still informing Senator Siengo. I'm still on a point of
Senator
order.
Kajwang, resume your seat. Resume your seat. Resume your seat. Resume your seat. Senator Kajwang, resume your seat. A point of order. You have, Senator Medu, you have 30 seconds.
Madam Speaker, if we do not respect the position of the chair, then we cannot have a debate. Mine is on contents or speech on a senator shall not impute improper motive. Because besides mentioning
Is it
Senator
the same
Cherargei,
point of order?
It's not. It's different. It's different. Besides mentioning Senator Cherargei, Madam Speaker, and she has said that she will substantiate that she has mentioned Senator Cherargei, Madam Speaker. Senator Beth Siengo has mentioned Senator Medu. In this House, it is in the Hansard. Unless she can be able to substantiate that I am part of the people that are organizing whatever she said that we are organizing.
Senator Medu. So, Senator Beth, when you resume, you substantiate regarding Senator Medu. Senator Kajwang, finish your point of information.
Madam Speaker, the information I wanted to give Senator Siengo and this republic, that Kenyans are reasonable people. Put food in their stomach, they will go back to their duties. Take away punitive taxes, they will go back to their duties. Kill corruption. Stop this outlandish display of wealth, watches, helicopters, shoes, new mansions. Madam Speaker, I am informing Senator Siengo that these protests, as long as they continue vomiting on our feet, as long as they continue vomiting on our shoes, we shall continue.
Senator Kajwang, I have cautioned you before. I have cautioned you before to heed when the chair calls you out. Senator Kajwang, it is not considerate to sneak in a debate under the guise of point of information. It is not correct. What you have done is to debate, and that is not correct. Senator Beth, resume. I have cautioned you. Point of information should be point of information, and it should be precise and brief, not an opportunity to debate again. Let's have order, Senator Cherargei.
Asante Mbi Speaker, ninashukuru Senator wa Homa Bay, Senator Kajwang kwa kunijulisha mambo ambao hakika ni ya muhimu sana. Jambo Yes, nimesema kwamba Mbi Speaker niko na ushahidi. Medu ameweka kwa WhatsApp, hata waliitwa Ekulu wakaenda kupangia vile yes. Muliitwa Ekulu mkaenda kupangiwa vile mutatuchinja kesho. Kwa hivyo mjue tunajua. Mbi Speaker, ningetaka kujulisha wenzangu hapa kwamba sufuria ni ishara ya chakula.
Senator Beth, the use of word kutuchinja is out of order. It's not parliamentary and cannot sail without substantiation. Senator Beth, you withdraw that.
Mbi Speaker, kwa heshima yote, Mbi Speaker, kwa heshima yote naomba usikuwe na upendeleo. Hao wanatuita magoon, wanatuita wakora na umenyamaza Mbi Speaker. Mbona nikisema wanasema wanatuchinja?
Senator Beth, you are out of order and I order you out of this session now. You are out of order. Either retract the session. Urgent terms, she exits from this session. For today's session, Senator Beth, out of the House. Sergeant at arms, please, out of the house. Honorable Senator, Senator Bev, out of this session. Honorable Senators, Honorable Senators, we must have respect for the proceedings in this House. We cannot allow a language that sends a wrong message to Kenyans. You will keep to the parliamentary language, and if you cannot, you exit from the session until when you can do the right thing. Senator Wamatinga.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I rise today to support the motion. Madam Speaker, on the 9th of August, we all seated in this House went to elections. Life moved on. We had competitors. Some of us several, others few. Others, we defeated them with big margins, others with smaller margin. Madam Speaker, we do know in the true spirit of democracy, there must be a winner and a loser in election. Madam Speaker, it is very unfortunate that indeed, after every cycle of election, that we have to go around these circles. Madam Speaker, we have a nation to take care of. We have the responsibility as leaders to ensure that the generations to come will look upon us and say, yes, there were people we elected and people who are responsible and who could take care of democracy. Madam Speaker, that calls us to be able to lose and go on, Madam Speaker, because every 5 years we have re-elections again. Madam Speaker, it is very unfortunate and indeed very deceptive and mockery of democracy that we can stand and tell Kenyans that we are standing and calling demonstrations because we want to bring the cost of living down. Madam Speaker, the cost of living can only be brought down through hard work, people planting and harvesting. Madam Speaker, because there is a God who lives, we are going to have a bumper harvest. We are going to have enough food, Madam Speaker. But there are those who are convinced, Madam Speaker, that unless they are in power, this country can never be in peace. It is so unfortunate, Madam Speaker, that we as a House can stand here and debate how we will actually destroy Kenyan property in the name of bringing the cost of food down. Madam Speaker, it does not take a genius to know that you cannot bring the cost of living down by destroying property. You cannot bring the cost of living down by maiming people. As has been said before, Madam Speaker, we've seen teachers demonstrate. We've seen doctors go on strike. We've never seen a life being lost. But we are asking, Madam Speaker, how many people must die for Kenyans to know that this country is bigger than them, Madam Speaker? How many of them? How many, Madam Speaker? That one person has every 5 years successfully fought his way into the government. Madam Speaker, it is very unfortunate that we are standing here losing precious time when we could be discussing bills about lowering cost of living, about lowering cost of power. Madam Speaker, I want to say this, Madam Speaker. The bills we have before this House. Yes, Madam Speaker.
You wish to be informed by
I do not want to be informed.
Eddie.
I want to finish, Madam Speaker. I do not want to be informed.
Proceed.
Madam Speaker, we have several bills here in Agricultural Committee that are geared towards bringing cost of living down. Madam Speaker, some of the members sitting on that side, Madam Speaker, who are members in my committee, we started a good journey of bringing down the cost of energy. But Madam Speaker, when I need them, they desert me because they have to go and fight. Madam Speaker, I want to appeal to this House. Let's stand up and talk with a voice of reason and bring the cost of living down by having a candid discussion about the things that we have to do as legislators. Madam Speaker, it is through registration. It is through candid discussions when cabinet secretaries come in this House, Madam Speaker. We see the minority side walk out. An opportunity that they have, Madam Speaker, to ask questions that really they feel that are important. Madam Speaker, let's not lie no more to Kenyans. Let's say it's all about ourselves. Let's say it's all about power. And if we have to have negotiations, any discussions, Madam Speaker, it must be from everybody, from the MCA who lost all the way to the president who lost. Because it cannot be. In an election where we have 6 candidates, the only problem we have is one single candidate, Madam Speaker. It is so unfortunate that this country has been held hostage by one single person who believes it's either his way or the highway, and he does not care how many Kenyans are going to die for him to get to power. Madam Speaker, we must stand to be counted. That is time that we stood for Kenyans and say this country is bigger than ours. It is bigger than one person. Madam Speaker, as I sit down, I want to urge the minority side, let's close ranks and say what it is that disturbs you. We see it as leaders. We do not have to go kill Kenyans. I see a senator, a young man here, who has a potential, but he's painting his hands with blood. Madam Speaker, it is so unfortunate that 30 years down the line, when we are long gone, people will remember this is the person who used to lead the death of young people. Madam Speaker, I support.
Senator Mwinyi Haji Mohamed Faki.
Asante Spika kwa kunipa fursa hii kuchangia hoja ambayo imeletwa bungeni na seneta wa Embu, Seneta Mundigi. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwanza kabisa ningempongeza seneta wa Embu kwa kuleta mswada huu alasiri ya leo, na kwamba mapema alikuwa ameomba taarifa hapa kwa nini watu wake wamekosa mbolea ili waweze kupanda miti na waweze kuzalisha chakula kwa uzuri zaidi kwao. Mheshimiwa Spika, pia nilisikia kwa masikitiko mchango ulioletwa na Mheshimiwa Wakoli, seneta wa gatuzi la Bungoma, ambaye anawakilisha chama cha Ford Kenya katika bunge hili, chama ambacho ndio baba na mama wa upinzani katika nchi yetu ya Kenya. Hayati Masinde Muliro, hayati kijana wa Malwa na wengineo wengi ambao walipigania demokrasia katika nchi hii yetu, leo wanageuka katika makaburi yao kwa sababu ya matamshi ambayo ametoa Mheshimiwa Wakoli. Mheshimiwa Spika, katiba ya Kenya inatupa fursa kuandamana, inatupa fursa kugoma, inatupa fursa ya kulalamika kwa mambo ambayo hayastahiki kufanyiwa wa Kenya. Mheshimiwa Spika, mswada wa fedha uliopitishwa na bunge mwezi uliopita ni mswada ambao 90% ya Wakenya waliupinga. Lakini wabunge wachache katika bunge lile 170 walipitisha kwamba ni sawa iwe sheria katika nchi yetu ya Kenya. Mheshimiwa Spika, wale wengi ambao hawakupata fursa ya kuzungumza katika bunge lile, wale wengi ambao maoni yao yalikataliwa katika vikao vya ushauri wa umma, yani public participation, ndio wale wananchi ambao sasa wako tayari kuandamana kupinga sheria hii. Mheshimiwa Spika, imeelezwa hapa kwamba mkurupuko wa bei ni kwa sababu ya mambo ya Ukraine. Hiyo si ndio Mheshimiwa Spika. Mkurupuko wa bei ni kwa sababu ya siasa duni na sababu ya polisi dumi za uchumi ambazo serikali hii ya Kenya Kwisha inaendeleza katika nchi yetu ya Kenya.
What is your point of information? Is it point of order or point of information?
Mheshimiwa Spika, nilinde.
Honorable Senators.
Naomba Mheshimiwa Spika unilinde.
Honorable Senators.
Naomba Mheshimiwa Spika unilinde kwa sababu uchungu ni mgumu.
Honorable Senators. Do
Ni
you
timu
have
ya
a point of
Mombasa.
order, Senator Wamatinga? Under which standing order?
Madam Speaker,
Under which standing order?
I'm standing under the order that is the senator in order to misinform the House that there is a Kenya Kwisha government in this country. Is he in order?
Can you respond, Senator Faki, what you mean?
Mheshimiwa Spika, sikusema kwamba ni serikali ya Kenya Kwisha. Nimesema Kenya Kwisha. Iko tofauti ya serikali ya Kenya Kwisha na neno Kenya Kwisha. Nafikiri mungenisikiza kwa makini Mheshimiwa. kwa sababu mwataka kufanya bunge la seneti kuwa kama yale mabaraza ya mitaa kule mnakotoka. Mheshimiwa Spika, ningependa kusema mambo haya kwamba polisi ndio chanzo kikubwa cha kutawanywa na kuvurugika kwa maandamano katika nchi yetu ya Kenya. Na hii Mheshimiwa Spika, nasema kulingana na takwimu na vile vile mambo ambayo yalinipata mimi mwenyewe binafsi kama seneta bunge wa kaunti ya Mombasa. Mheshimiwa Spika, tarehe 12 Jumatano iliyokwisha, sisi tulikuwa tumetoa arifa ya kuandamana katika kaunti ya Mombasa. Na arifa ile ilipelekwa mapema kwa polisi, lakini polisi walikaa mpaka saa 2 asubuhi wakati tuko tayari kuandamana, na wakaleta barua ya kusema kwamba maandamano ni marufuku kwa sababu ya utalii. Lakini Mheshimiwa Spika, nimeangalia Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi nachangia mswada wa Seneta Mundigi na yeye ndio wa kwanza kupiga kelele. Mheshimiwa Spika, lazima wakati ujao Mheshimiwa Spika, tukija hapa bunge watu wapimwe wamekula mirama mgukaa kiasi gani. Mheshimiwa Spika, tukatimuliwa Mheshimiwa Spika.
What's your point of order, Senator Cherargei? Senator Faki.
Madam Speaker, standing order number 105, is it in order for the senator of Mombasa, who does not know the value of miraa and miraa farmers, to allege that miraa is something that you take like a drug, Madam Speaker, yet it is not an alcohol? Madam Speaker, is it in order to cast aspersions on the use of miraa, Madam Speaker? And Madam Speaker, is it in order for him we don't have a government called Kenya Kwisha, we have a government called Kenya Kwanza. He should be informed, Madam Speaker. Is it in order to cast aspersion on the use of miraa and insult miraa farmers who are hardworking, yet they purport that they are fighting for farmers, Madam Speaker? Is it in order?
Senator Faki, can you respond to that?
Mheshimiwa Spika, wajua Cherargei tulimlea sisi hapa, hata mimi ndio nilimsaidia mpaka akaapishwa kama wakili. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, na heshima ni kitu muhimu. Yeye amekuwa nje ya bunge, ameingia tu na kuweza kuruka na kusema kwamba mambo ya miraa hivi na vile. Mheshimiwa Spika, nyingine huwa si hoja za nidhamu. Nyingine huwa ni mtu apate fursa kupiga makelele. Hakuna chochote kilichokosa nidhamu hapo. Nimesema kwamba kuwekwe mashini ya kupima watu kama wamekula mirama mgukaa. Hiyo haimaanishi kwamba tumetusi mtu yoyote. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa kumalizia Mheshimiwa Spika, ni kwamba polisi ndio watu wa kwanza kuvuruga maandamano.
Senator Wafula.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika. Kanuni 105, sielewi mbona mheshimiwa anaashiria kwamba wanaoingia kwenye jumba hili kama maseneta huwa wanaashiria kutumia vileo ama mihadarati wanapofanya kazi zao. Naomba athibitishe ama aombe msamaha Mheshimiwa Spika.
Mheshimiwa Spika,
Senator Kajwang, maintain order. Senator Faki, you have half a minute to respond to that allegation.
Mheshimiwa Spika, tukiingia pale katika mlango kila saa 8:30 tunaangaliwa silaha. Hakuna anayebeba silaha hapa, lakini tunaangaliwa silaha pale. Kwa hivyo itakuwa si makosa kwa wale ambao watoka sehemu zile ambazo wana vitu kama hivyo waweze kupimwa kama wametumia ama hawajatumia. Kwa kumalizia Mheshimiwa Spika,
your time is up, Senator. Your time was up actually. I was letting you respond.
Bado dakika moja. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa kumalizia,
resume your seat, Senator.
Mheshimiwa Spika, angalia huyu.
Senator Faki, resume your seat. Your time is up. Senator Mungatana Danson Buya.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to start by congratulating the Honorable Alexander Mondigi for bringing this matter so that we can have an opportunity to have an intellectual discussion in this House. Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, I want to make only 2 points very quickly because the time is short. The first one is that the alleged waiving of Article 37 to justify maandamano, Mr. Speaker, is wrong. And the reason is that, first of all, Madam Speaker, can I be protected from this walking around because I'm not focusing?
Honorable Senators, please let's have order.
Yeah, even the mover of the
Can
ocean.
you resume your seats, Honorable Senators?
We want to have an intellectual discussion. Madam Speaker, I want to make this point. They have waived Article 37, but they don't read that there is Article 39, which prescribes the freedom of movement. They don't read that there is Article 40, which prescribes protection of property. They don't read that there's Article 26, which gives the right to life. So, Madam Speaker, I was insisting that if we are going to talk about the Constitution, let us talk about the whole of that Constitution. Article 37 is not superior to the other articles. That's my first point. My second point, Madam Speaker, it is calling this nation to anarchy if we operate outside the state, outside the Constitution. It is actually calling upon the destruction of the state. Madam Speaker, those of us who have gone to school and learned law, we learned, Madam Speaker, in jurisprudence year 1, that there was the English philosopher and a jurisprudent by the name Thomas Hobbes. Thomas Hobbes stated in his book Leviathan that in the state of nature, it was the brute force that ruled society. Might was right. Then society developed. It created states. And the state was, we agree as a society, to surrender some of our powers to the executive, to the national parliament, and in this case, Senate and National Assembly, to the judges, so that there is social order. We agreed as a state that this is where we will rule, this is where we will make laws, this is where, if issues arise, we will seek interpretation of those laws. Madam Speaker, any attempt to operate outside the constitutional order, it creates anarchy. And Madam Speaker, I want to tell our leaders who are in the opposition that when you move out of the state, agreed state structure, which we have put in the Constitution, agreed that when we have a problem, we shall go to the judges, that when you want to create law, we shall go to the House of Laws, that when you want to execute, we shall go to the powers that is executive. When you move outside that, you are going to create anarchy, and we will have no state to talk about. Madam Speaker, I am urging the leader of opposition, and together with the other people, the Honorable Raila Odinga, Martha Karua, Mheshimiwa Eugene Wamalwa, Mheshimiwa Kalonzo Musyoka, operate within the law. This is the way forward for this nation. We will never reduce the cost of living by throwing stones. We will never bring down change by throwing stones. Madam Speaker.
Do you wish to be informed by Senator Kenywa?
Yes, yes, yes.
Bwana Speaker, Madam B Speaker, pole. Senator Mngatana anawajua hawa watu kwa mienendo yao, kwa mavazi yao na huka zao. Bwana Speaker, B Speaker, unakumbuka vizuri Mlamamba kama alivyokuwa kijita nyakati zile, alipambana na huyu mtu. Unakumbuka ya kwamba huyu mtu huyu na unamjua huyu mtu, yeye mwenyewe alisumbua Moi, akapewa waziri kukatulia, akasumbua Kibaki, akaleta machafuko. mpaka akapewa waziri
What's your
mkuu.
point of order, Senator
Kutoka hapo
Kajwang'?
akasumbua Uhuru kwa maandamano
Senator
haya
Kenya.
haya, maandamano haya haya.
Senator Kinyua, there is a point of order here. What's the point of order?
Please, Madam Speaker, you warned me and gave me directions that I should not use a point of information to debate. And I complied and I respectfully accepted your decision. Madam Speaker, Commissioner Kinyua, who should know better because he has been a speaker in this house, is using point of information to debate and talk about crocodiles, things that are not before the house, Madam Speaker.
Okay.
Please rule him out of order.
Resume your seat now, Senator Kinyua. Senator Kajwang'. Senator Kinyua, can you give the information without bringing in a debate?
Nakubali Bi Speaker, ni kweli na ni vizuri Bi Speaker wajue ya kwamba mimi ninampatia taarifa ambayo hakuwa akikumbuka, kwa sababu amesema maneno mengi, lakini ukweli wa mambo Bwana Speaker, ile inatakikana, hakuna mambo mengine inafanywa, ni kusema ya kwamba ye ni mtu mmoja akinufaika Kenya inakuwa nzuri, na tutakataa leo, kesho kutwa, hata mtondogo Bwana Speaker. Nashukuru.
Senator Mungatana, would you wish to be informed by Senator Wafula, or you will? Proceed, Senator Mungatana.
Yes, let me conclude by saying this. It's very serious, Madam Speaker. We need to agree that everything that will make this state stand must be done within the constitutional order that we agreed as a state, that we cannot have people create.
Senator Osotsi.
Madam Speaker, picketing and demonstration is part of our democracy. And it is not a surprise that those in Kenya Kwanza are against demonstration. Because, Madam Speaker, history tells us that the top leadership of Kenya Kwanza were part of the system that derailed democracy in this country. So they are doing what they are used to. And Madam Speaker, I want to say today, out there, Kenyans are hungry and angry. And Kenyans are hungry and angry because of insensitive regime called Kenya Kwanza.
What's your point of order? Hold, Senator Otsotsi, resume your seat.
Madam Speaker, I raise understanding order number 98.
Senator Eddie, you border on being out of order.
Madam Speaker, I can forgive Senator Eddie because the situation he is in. Standing order number 98 and 105, there is what we call 101 also, contents of speech. Madam Speaker, the senator who is my neighbor, Omwami Otsotsi, has alleged that the top leadership in Kenya Kwanza administration have been against demonstrations. We have not been against demonstrations that are peaceful. What we have been against is demonstrations that are violent, that rob people, that rape women, that prevent children from going to school, that is sponsored by Azimio and Kenya Alliance, which is a member, Madam Speaker. Is he in order? And if he has evidence to table before the House to prove and show that the top leadership of Kenya Kwanza government, Madam Speaker, have been against, we have only been against the demonstrations that are violent, that are sponsored by Azimio and Kenya Alliance.
Senators, it is now 6:30 p.m. Time to adjourn the House. The Senate therefore stands. Can we have order? The Senate therefore stands adjourned until tomorrow, Wednesday, 19th July, 2023 at 9:30 a.m.